Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today, have we got a show for you, okay? Counterpoints will be joining us shortly. He is running a little late, but I have gathered together a group of veterans, people who have served in various branches, in various capacities, to talk about recent accusations that have been brought against Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, I believe it was, or Michigan, one of the M words. He has been accused of lying and misrepresenting his service record. The accusations include things like stolen valor, him dropping out of the military in order to dodge a deployment, abandoning his men, misrepresenting where he served and how he served. A lot of different accusations have come together. And I wanted to talk about it amongst people who have actually served in the military in some capacity or another. Civies have their opinions, but I think that this impacts veterans a little more. So I've gathered a few together, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give the mic to them to introduce themselves, tell you who they are. They can tell you where they served if they'd like, and then they're just opening thoughts on all this. And we're going to start with Audacity. Please give us what you got.
Hi, so yeah, I'm Audacity. I served for about 8-9 years, Army Reserves. I'm sorry if I'm not providing an accurate number on that, but it's a blur. I served 8-9 years in the U.S. Army Reserve, starting off, starting off as in the commo training circuit, and then eventually moving into, my units and everything, and getting active time in the reserves. Working on command and control, brigade level element of response to national disaster or attack. So I spent a lot of time in, the TOC. I spent a lot of time around officers and everything. Eventually would make E5, buck sergeant in the military in the U.S. Army Reserves, and close out that time moving into a civil affairs unit and getting a lot of good information on how civil affairs works, how their intel gathering operations work and everything, and it being just a really good experience overall.
Well, what are your thoughts on Tim Walz? Stolen Valor or no?
No, not fully in the regard that the media and a lot of people are making it out to be. He wouldn't be the first person to have ever embellished a record, but he would be the first, I guess, person in running for a section of the executive that's done so, I guess. Not really a super critical issue as it pertains to the Kamala Harris campaign or anything that needs to be discussed in that atmosphere. But if it just gives ammo to the political space that you could start running attack ads on this guy that he lies about his service and and the details within. I mean, the main critical issue I have with Tim Walz is when he does stuff like equate his time in service to an opinion on firearms and the laws around that, and how it should operate. Like when you're a veteran, you go out there and it's like, I carried a weapon of war. It's these weapons of war, and you have access to them here in the States. Blah blah blah. It's like, oh, it's not. It doesn't really like hold any more weight that you're a veteran saying these things than it would if it was just an average politician.
Got you. We'll get into it when we go. Thank you for being here, and I really appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thanks for reaching out. We are going to go next to Quinn. Give us your thoughts.
Hey, what's
Tell
up,
people
guys?
who you are. Go ahead.
So I am QuinnQ, also known as Edokwin on all platforms, EDOKWIN. I just say that for simplicity. Former U.S. Navy, E5 petty officer. I feel like I'm going to use a quote, actually. I took some notes before, or made some notes for myself before we started. Worst thing that can happen to a good cause is not to be skillfully attacked, but ineptly defended. And in this case, what I would say is the good cause is attacking lies that have been, or let's say misrepresentations that have been made in regards to Chris Walz's service record by himself and by others. But the inept defense, and I think maybe ironically enough, Audacity and I might agree with this, is in the area of complaining about specific issues like he dodged Iraq and he left his troop in the lurch. It's like he was a National Guardsman who had already served for over 24 years, and he put in his papers, and that's a completely legitimate thing to do. Like if you want to say that he didn't have like a super important role, if you want to say he didn't have a combat role, those are all things you can say. If you want to say that he's misrepresented himself when he's implied or stated that he did have a combat role, that's all legitimate, and you can attack him on that. But this weird, like, cringe line of attack where we're going to complain, one hand, that we're emphasizing or misrepresenting himself and saying he's a combat veteran or implying he's a combat veteran and his role is important when arguably it wasn't. Again, I think all service is important, right? And I think that's a fair line, but that's part of what people are saying. And then on the flip side, but like, how dare you leave service after 24 years? What? So we'll get into it, but my main thing is like, just attack him on the stuff that's like legitimate, it makes sense. Don't complain about the fact that he retired or was discharged after putting in his papers legitimately.
We'll get into it. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. Next up, it's been a while, but no stranger to my channel, Fabian Liberty Scott. Go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is, I find this conversation to be, and I don't mean you specifically in your channel, but it is a bit of a distraction in the media, right? I think the fact that there's going to be a lot of nitpicking tonight, and to people that aren't veterans, I was like, well, how do I communicate this nitpicking that is like highly detailed, like this contract, Sergeant Major Academy, and how long, you can maintain a rank, and things that civilians probably don't care about, or might not quite understand why it's important. And, it's like a former president, running for president had an assassination attempt on them. And the other person is dodging media interviews, doesn't have any policies, and is hiding their campaign behind working with Google so that they can collude for misinformation to try and win the election illegitimately. And it's like, and we're talking about, couch fucking and like, service records. And I think that really just kind of goes to state the degrading culture around politics in general. So how do I communicate this to the civilian that has a difficult time understanding? And I think the best way to do that is to keep in mind throughout tonight, when all these itty technicalities. Is it legally this? Sergeant Major Academy this? How long was their contract? Shit that like doesn't make a lot of sense. The Army has 7 core values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And my question to you is, if you're wondering why veterans are upset, does Walz represent these values that they sign up for and that they and many veterans believe that they represent, at least to some degree? Well, it certainly isn't loyalty to his unit. When he left his contract early and didn't finish out his contract so that he could dodge war. It certainly wasn't duty, because he left his contract early, right? He had a duty to fulfill his contract and he didn't. It certainly isn't respect, because the gaslighting and lies of omission shows that he doesn't respect the average American citizen and thinks you're all stupid and that you won't notice that he's a liar. It certainly isn't selfless service. Again, dodging war and, and lying about this, getting out so he can run for Congress, like Tulsi Gabbard didn't do both. It certainly isn't honor. I don't think there's much honorability in his service in that regard, though there is some towards anyone, I think, that serves, and to some degree. Certainly isn't integrity, when he is, again, having these lies of omission and using them for his own political whims, such as gun control and things like that, and making you believe falsities. And lastly, personal courage. I think again, that comes to this concept of running away from war that he very clearly knew was coming and put his paperwork in early and somehow got out of a contract, one that he didn't even have the balls to sign, because he knew that he was going to be deranked back to a master sergeant instead of a command sergeant major. I mean, there's a lot of little things, but keep those values in mind tonight, and maybe you'll understand why so many service members are upset by his lies of omission and his sleazy, typical politician bullshit. Because I don't want to say that Vance or Trump or Kamala Harris or Biden or any of these other politicians are somehow exemplars and that he's like this sole bad actor, right? It is just typical politician behavior, but it's certainly not representative of those 7 core values.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. I'm sure we will get into it as we go. Last but certainly not least, well, at least until Counterpoints arrives, Aircraft Sparky, please.
Okay, so my opinion on this has changed from when it initially showed up to now. I'll go through the evolution here in just a moment. But hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Aircraft Sparky. I can be found on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch. Under that name, one word, Aircraft Sparky. Constitutionalist, populist, bullshitter extreme, U.S. Air Force and Army combat vet, deployed with both branches, proud of my service, undoubtedly loyal to the people who I served with. God bless them all, and God bless all my veterans who even didn't serve, because it doesn't matter if you went overseas or not.
Deployed. Okay, that's what it's...
Yeah. Because honestly, look, you're just practicing, right? Until you actually go out into the field and do the damn thing, you're just practicing. So if all you did was practice, I still think you're important. But let's start off with this. It's easy to be a peacetime soldier. And what that means is it's easy to show up and do your job, to practice. You're really just refining a skill. That way, when crisis hits and something has to happen, you're able to perform that job without engaging your brain at all. With that in mind, Master Sergeant retired Tim Walz did 24 years in the National Guard. Some of it he was actually active duty in the Army. We like to call them nasty girls or no-goes. There's a lot of derogatory terms for them, but you know what? They did. The people who deployed out into the war zones did a stand-up job. While they were out there, they were consummate professionals, and thank God that Tim Walz did not go, because evidently he was not a consummate professional. The fact, legally, he did not commit stolen valor. Stolen valor is claiming that you received awards that you did not earn, such as the Purple Heart. And when I think about someone in the political space who did that, well, I mean, John Kerry, he's being Tim Walz is being swift boated right now, and he should be swift boated. He He retired to avoid a deployment. I don't begrudge him for doing that. I begrudge him for doing it, for waiting as long as he did. Okay. They knew about this. They knew about this deployment well in advance. With him being a command sergeant major, he knew about it the very moment that it happened, because they had to schedule NTC training, which traditionally happens a month before the deployment. It's just so convenient that he retired a month before they left for NTC. That's no mistake. Make no doubt about it. The fact that he used the title of command sergeant major to push himself politically, and even as a representative in the U.S. House, he had a challenge coin that had that insignia. For those of you who don't know, rank means something in the military. It doesn't make you a better person, but it does make you more correct in terms of how leadership views you. So the higher your rank, the more gravitas you have and more weight to the words that you say. I do not know a single general who will just discard the words of a sergeant major, and definitely will not do that to a command sergeant major. There's a lot of respect that comes with that rank. For the Navy, that would be the Master Chiefs. For the Air Force, it would be Chief Master Sergeant. For the Puddle Pirates, I have no clue. For the Marine Corps, Master Guns. But look, this means something to the veteran community, because those core values. And I currently work as a DoD employee. Yeah. Service
we
for
gotta
self,
get to the actual
excellence in all we
discussion,
do,
but
and
yeah,
integrity.
finish.
Yeah, let's. But yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Yeah.
you off,
No,
but
I rambled.
We're
It's good.
15 minutes in, and we're still on opening statements, so we gotta
It's good.
gotta
Good.
get to the actual discussion.
Let's get to
I
it.
love you, brother. I do. So I guess my first question, right, is, so I think Fabian Liberty, Scott here, and Aircraft Sparky has elucidated why they seem to care about it. To the other two, to Audacity, to Quinn, does his and you mentioned this in your opening statement, Quinn. You say, I don't really care when he retired or why he retired. Why don't you care? Why is that not important to you? Why has what Aircraft Sparky said and Scott just it's something you brought? Shrug your shoulders out. Go ahead.
Oh, first and foremost, if we're going again to make this argument about him not having a particularly vital role in the armed forces, which again, that's not what I'm saying. That's what other people are saying, but that's other people on this call. And if we're going to make that argument, then at what point does that argument not directly cut against complaining when he puts in his papers? Because he put in his papers. He didn't odds the draft.
Let's be fair, none of us made that argument.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're talking about like amorphous people on Twitter, not us, but yeah.
Okay, great. I don't want to strawman anybody on the call. So then
Mhm.
amorphous people on Twitter, I think, are incorrect to complain about him putting in his papers. And I would say anybody who is complaining about him putting in his papers more broadly is potentially not barking up the wrong tree, making the weaker of a number of arguments you could make in this area, the stronger of which being, for example, the weapons of war quote, the issue about the rank. I mean, rank recognition is a huge thing that's instilled in all branches. It was a huge thing that was instilled in me in the Navy. But what I would say is, while he does not have the right to claim the rank by right because he did not do enough in terms of mostly the paperwork to maintain that rank, he did. Hey man, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
It's a paperwork thing.
No,
No,
that's
it's more than
false.
that.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Yeah.
So just very quickly, just to correct that misinformation that you're spreading, right? In order to maintain your rank of command sergeant major, you need to stay enlisted and fulfill that role for 2 years after you graduate the sergeant major academy, and or you are promoted to the position of command sergeant major or sergeant major, whichever comes later, right? So he did not fulfill that in any way, shape, or form because his contract was out in 2007 and he left a few years earlier than that. So he didn't fulfill the role that he signed on for when he was promoted and those are the conditional requirements. It's not about paperwork. It's about time and service for 2 years in that position after you've graduated the academy and or after you've been promoted to that role, because you can go to the academy sometimes before. So it's not a paperwork issue. He left his contract years early and dodged a deployment and didn't fulfill his responsibilities in his contract to maintain that position.
Let's talk about the dodge the deployment claim. This is a claim I've heard several times. But as I understand it, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong because I've done some research on this, but there's a lot of competing information out there. Let's say that.
That's fair.
As I understand it, he put in his paperwork to retire months before they knew about the deployment. And while, yes, the paperwork didn't... Hold on, just let me finish. Well, the paperwork didn't go through until after he knew about it, right? I think that's a different thing than putting in your paperwork after you know that you're going to be deployed. Because it takes some time. I didn't retire.
2 corrections.
Just real quick. Let me finish. I didn't retire, but before I was discharged and I got out after my term of service, I put in my paperwork to do that a few months before, right? And there was a checklist of stuff I had to do. I had to go to different meetings here are your benefits, right? And you had classes that you had to sign up for. It wasn't something you did the next day. It took time. It took months to sign all that. I didn't retire, but I imagine someone who is retiring also has to go through a similar process and probably has more stuff on top of that they have to do. So why is what am I wrong about here?
So 2 things. Number one, we don't know the exact date of his filing of the paperwork for retiring, right? We have an assumption. The problem is that he didn't do a normal retirement, right? Like, so if you're retired from the military, either you are to get an honorable discharge, right? You're either fulfilling your contract to its completion. You can get a 30-day deferral if you join to go to college, if you leave to go to college. So you have 30 days left. And then you can also sometimes put in that paperwork if you have a lot of time, if you have a lot of leave saved, right? You can put in that paperwork ahead of your leave and essentially finish out your leave and get paid out and leave when there. And then lastly, you can get medically retired, right? So you can medically retire because of a medical issue. The thing here is that he retired ostensibly to run for Congress. Now, you can still be in the National Guard and be a sitting member of Congress and run for Congress. You don't need to retire, but what's that?
I have stuff on that. I want to let you finish, but I have plenty of stuff.
Okay, sure. Once he's finished,
absolutely. I'm just saying that is you don't need to retire, right? But potentially that is a reason to retire, right? So the thing that is an issue at here is yes, lower enlisted are not necessarily aware of a deployment until it's official, and they hear some whispers and rumbles. But if you are a command sergeant major, you are going to base command to have meetings. You know that your unit is likely to deploy potentially 2 years ahead of time and usually a year ahead of time, right? And so the concept that the paperwork being filed is a couple months ahead and that there's this potential, because we don't know exactly when, that he didn't file that paperwork after that, but before that, is a bit of a dodge there. And I don't mean that you're doing it on purpose, but a command sergeant major would have known 6 months, potentially a year, potentially 2 years at a time. When he filled out that paperwork, he fucking knew, even if he didn't know that his unit was going to deploy, he knew that it was likely that his
sometime
unit
in the future at some unnamed date that they might deploy. Yes, that's fine. But
yes,
that's different than
and he didn't finish his contract.
Okay, so
and then the second thing,
there's a couple things,
and this one's way quicker. The second one is really quick. He told his unit that he was going to be their command sergeant major in their deployment.
Yeah,
and that was a lie.
So the problem
was a lie. He knew he was retiring, and someone else was going to have to fulfill that role.
So 2 things. So and then I'll pass the mic to you, Quinn. I'm just playing counterpoints while he's not here. Okay, I'm just putting the more liberal on the panel while he's not here. So just keep that in mind. So the problem with it is after you serve 20 years in the military, right, you qualify for retirement. And so you can sign a contract, but it is normative and a normal thing that people do all the time where they decide, after 2 years after signing a 6-year contract, after they have that 20-year letter, to say, I have something else come up. Hey, can I retire now and just break the contract? And it's a normative thing to do. It happens all the time.
It's not normal
Can I
to break
step
your
on that point
contract
for a
early
second,
after you
though?
signed up to be a command sergeant major, and
Go ahead,
potentially a
Audacity.
unit is about to deploy.
Yeah, sorry.
That's not normal.
To give a little bit more merit to Fabian's point, and to kind of step on what you just said, Wick, there is an operational structure to how orders are disseminated. You got your op board, your warno, your warning order, and you have your fragmentary orders, which everyone should be familiar with.
Frago, let's go.
Frago, dude. And birds up in 6. The warno, it's not necessarily in that order that the op order has to come out before you get a warno. The warno can, to Fabian's point, come in well in advance for when you're about to prepare for movement, which means breaking out all the equipment and inspecting shit. And Walz would have definitely been a part of those meetings, even with his existence as an E8.
I don't deny that. The question for my mind, and what I actually care about, because this is the point that I actually it matters to me personally, is did he know about it before his paperwork was in?
Yes.
That's all. That's the question. And again, the timeline, you guys are saying for sure, but you also say, well, we don't know when he put his paperwork in. If he had put his paperwork in a year before, and then a 6 months within that process, they find out.
If he put his paperwork in a year before, why didn't he step down as command sergeant major and quit
he would have been automatically dropped out of command sergeant major.
Why
because
even go to the
he had to be
school?
replaced.
Why even go to the
He
school?
wouldn't even have gone to the school. Yeah.
Can't time it.
Like if it was a year, the only timetable that it makes sense is that this paperwork would have come either at the very end or after he had graduated.
He's been in
the Sergeant Major Academy, right? It doesn't make
when
sense.
Was he provisionally? When was he provisionally appointed to command sergeant major?
At the end of 2003 is when he was.
So he'd been in there for about 2 years.
September 17th, 2004, he was conditionally promoted to command sergeant major.
Frocked is the word that you're looking for.
Provisionally appointed. I'm not sure the term, but
it's frocking is when you sit in a position one rank above yours to fulfill the role until you can either fully fulfill the role or find someone that can.
Yeah,
Rick, consider it like this because
E4s
the academy
E4s get frocked before they get E5.
Yeah. So the academy, the way it works is you go for like a month for actually in-house schooling. Then the rest of it is correspondence that you do over the period of 2 years, and then you come back at the end of the academy.
I'm just asking if.
And I want to still jump on.
So he did the initial part. Yes, he was in the middle of the correspondence. But here's the deal that I don't know what period y'all served in, but I was in during 9/11. I actually just returned from a deployment. And so there was, I remember senior NCOs that were getting ready to retire. And a week after 9/11, they're ripping up their retirement paper because they knew that we were going down range, and they didn't want us to go down there without their leadership. That is what an actual leader does. What Tim Walz did is he found a cheap excuse. I'm going to go run for Congress, which, by the way, he could have applied for a waiver for, and he could have abandoned his men then, and did his little campaign. But no, he chose to full ass out of the military.
His voice.
Hold on. Wait, before we go down that road, though, I still want to jump on a point that Wick made that said you can apply for retirement at 20 years is true. Right. But when you re-sign a contract, I believe you're locked to that contract unless it's under special conditions.
That's actually untrue. So
that's untrue.
Once you're past your initial 8, so everyone, when you enlist, your first enlistment, you sign up for 8 years. I don't care if you only do 3 active, you're going to be 5 IRR, things like that.
Yeah.
Once you get past
your for officers though, but
yeah. But once you get past your 8 years, you can actually resign like an officer, and you can be released under honorable conditions.
And it happens
Yeah.
all the
Okay.
time after 20 years. Like someone, family issues will come up. I've heard of it happening more than once for various reasons. It's nothing
All
I
right.
can speak to
crazy.
the why here
Quinn,
because this is
Quinn,
relevant.
go, and then we're gonna let
Thank
Counterpoints
you.
give his
So,
opening statements. Yeah.
I mean, among other things, there's the Hatch Act. I get why you want to stick on this dodging thing, and I'm going to say a lot of this is unknowable. The actual like timeline of what he knew when, what he did when, in terms of the paperwork, is to some extent unknowable. We all, I think, are kind of in that area of acknowledging that to some extent. I just don't think this is the strongest line of attack to hit him on. I am not saying you can't hit him on stuff. I've, again, said in my opening statement, you can hit him on stuff. You want to hit him on the rank and recognition. You want to hit him on the weapons of war. You want to hit him on any number of things. Hit him on that. Like, why are we hitting him on probably the weakest area, which is him leaving service when he's allowed to leave service after over 2 decades in service? It's the weakest area. Hit him on the good stuff, right? This is what I'm talking about.
So one of the reasons is because we're kind of we're hitting this one right off the
Oh, and
bat because
thank you, J Mac, for the 20 gifted memberships. Really appreciate you. Okay, carry on.
so it's a sign of his character, what it is, and for people who have been on the ground doing the damn thing, character means a lot, and it is something that is just repugnant to those who have been dependent on those, to either side of them. I can't speak to your experience, so I can't.
It's the same reason that Bill Clinton was taken to task so heavily because he didn't want to recover a few bodies of fallen Rangers, right? It's not that that's the most egregious thing Bill Clinton has ever done. It's not that that's an example of him being like a terrible liar or horrible politician.
Broke a promise.
It's
man.
because it's something that speaks to the heart of what so many veterans have been through or struggled with or what they're so emotionally attached to. So like, yes, I agree that there is some ambiguity. Did we lose me?
You're good. You're good.
I agree that there is some ambiguity in whether or not he technically knew that they were going to go to war, or whether or not he only knew that there was a large potential that his unit would go, and also he had served his 20 years, and as for me personally, I don't even really care if someone dips out to avoid war. I don't really care if they lie about it and then try and make that part of their status and have lies of omission of like, I served, under Operation Enduring Freedom and carried weapons of war, and it's like, dog, you were in Italy and you're making everybody believe that you were like, that you served. Like, so I think it's that is what I personally care about.
He did serve.
But if we're asking, but I think if you're asking why do people in general, or why do a lot of veterans care, I think a lot of veterans know politicians are liars, but that's a lot different than feeling abandoned when they're about to go to war by their leadership, because so many of them have so many different individual instances where their leadership failed them in war, and their identity and a lot of their emotions are tied to the fact that they fought for the country. And if they slip up on that and they start to realize that, I start to realize the anarchist in me is coming out. But if they start to feel like, that like none of this matters, or that this is all lying sacks of shit and things like that, I think that triggers a much more visceral emotional response. So I think that's why people care about that point specifically more than the points that make it more obvious that he's kind of doing lies of omission.
I wanted to pass the mic to Counterpoints, who has graciously joined us, and get his thoughts on the situation so far. And if you've been picking up what's been being put down, feel free to kind of jump in. So go ahead, floor's yours.
Yeah, good evening. I'm not sure if we're going to have as much disagreement as I initially thought, although I'm going to take more of the Waltz, this is a Nothingburger side on this kind of thing, because he can lean back into, well, I did 24 years. I got honorably discharged. If my command had a problem with me, then they could have written me up. They could have talked shit about me. They could have hold me back on promotions, et cetera, and they never did. So as a result, I served 24 years. Now, do I personally, separate from the talking points, do I personally think that he's a little bit of a pussy who's exaggerating his credentials. Sure. But that's most politicians, right? So the thing that I think Fabian Liberty said that bugs me the most about the scenario is crowing about it afterwards, right? That's my biggest problem. If he said, listen, I did 24 years, I had a family, I served honorably, I was tired, I didn't want to go on a 2-year deployment, you know, I don't know if y'all know about 2007, but it was kind of a wild time to be in the military then.
The surge.
I was there.
05. 07 would
well,
be his contract ending.
Yeah,
Unless
well,
you
his
mean-
contract ended in-
five was worse than 7, and 7 was rough. So
The surge is huge.
yeah. Or I disagreed with it politically. Clarity and transparency would be more appreciated by the veteran community, but I understand why he's not going to give that to us now, because he's essentially going to be fueling the drama, so to speak. So do I have personal judgments of it? Absolutely. But to what you were saying earlier, I largely view very high up staff NCOs as fucking useless. So for me, it's like, does your master sergeant or your command sergeant major isn't deploying with you? So my original thoughts when I first heard this drama, I was like, oh, so one less person who needs moist towelettes, water, a shitter, a place to sleep, food, who does fucking nothing all goddamn day and drinks coffee and tells other people how to do their jobs. Perfect. Fuck off. We don't need you. That was my first reaction.
Well, okay, so you're right. They
fair,
didn't
it was
hold
an
him.
NCO,
Really
not an
hold on.
officer.
Hold on.
I didn't want to like say this initially because I was unsure if there's a safe space, but I did like my COs. I didn't like my COs. Okay, I didn't like my COs in general. I didn't hate them, but I didn't like my COs. So thank you. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, at least you didn't frag them like some did. Look,
Jeez,
when you
make it
Well,
dark.
Quinn
damn.
wasn't in the NFL.
Is that a Vietnam reference?
but look, he retired as a master sergeant officially, and just looking over his decorations, his highest decoration is an ARCOM, an Army Commendation Medal.
Oh, I have more decorations than he does.
Yeah.
4 years.
So-
Participation trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
I
maybe
can't
we
talk
should
about it.
give
I
him
wanna-
4 years so I
want
can
to
get
share.
college. You
I
know
want
what
to
I mean?
share
Like,
how much of a
I
joke
didn't
this is.
serve in combat, but I mean that is fucking funny.
No, so sorry for interrupting, Sparky, but I do want to share how funny this is. So, like, when you were in the global war on terror or whatever, like, you get the National Defense Ribbon. After a few years of whatever, you get the Good Conduct Ribbon. I got like a Navy Achievement Medal, which I think is a ribbon that I could wear.
Yeah.
I got them right as I was getting out. So I basically had like a double stack that was full. So it was like 8 ribbons or whatever. And then I look at, Waltz, who's been in for 24 years, and I see like 2 awards. And I'm like, Jesus, what were you doing for 24
Dude, so
years?
I love
his
the
highest
conditional
decoration-
wear ribbons. The conditional wear ribbons are the best, man. Like, you wear it if you want, but people are gonna make fun of you if you do.
Probably
It's
didn't
like,
even get the good
shit.
fatigues. You get better
So-
fatigues if you serve in combat. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just kind of ridiculous because look, I have an ARCOM and I did 3 years in the Army. I have Air Force Achievement Medals, Air Force Commendation Medals. Most senior NCOs, as a going away gift, they get something called an MSN, a Meritorious Service Medal. They didn't even give him that. That's how high in regard he had from his leadership. In fact, his CEO put out a Facebook post on him, said that he was competent as a master sergeant, but he was useless as a command sergeant major, and they were actually blessed that he pulled out.
Which right, that kind of speaks to, sorry for interrupting, but that speaks to this thing of like, once I think this is a safe space, right? So
Yeah.
the military, the military attracts a few kinds of people, but the 2 that I'm thinking of are the biggest pieces of shit that you've ever met in your entire life, and the most amazing human beings that you've ever met in your entire life. And then there's, of course, like
Pretty
the
much,
average Joes, right? And so what happens is, for people who want to stay in, oftentimes the most amazing people in the world, they don't want to stay in because they don't want to eat the buckets of shit, right? They do exist, and they do exist in senior leadership, but they're more rare. Whereas oftentimes, particularly like officers get held to a higher standard, although I hate officers for a different reason. Staff NCOs, it's whoever, which is non-commissioned officers, enlisted personnel, it's basically whoever can survive. Right? It's whoever can eat the buckets of shit the longest. And so it's not surprising to me that they were like, oh, he was a competent master sergeant, because a master sergeant just means that you know your job very, very well and you know how to teach it to other people, right? But as a command sergeant major, he didn't know what he was doing. Command sergeant major is supposed to be like the senior enlisted person who is responsible for leadership and training within the unit. But most sergeant majors I fucking met were goddamn useless because the unit is too big to command. There's too many people under you for you to know what's actually going on.
Yeah, I don't
drink coffee.
I don't want to. Did you have breakfast this morning? I don't want to step into the area of psychoanalysis of the situation, but he does exhibit a lot of signs of a climber or a spotlighter. You know, like I could see him.
Sure.
You know, whether or not he was competent at his job still like serves to be met. But
you know that he highlighted the unit's achievements as if they were his own when he was speaking in publicly at any time, even if he was not involved in the project whatsoever.
So the descriptor is what I find to be interesting.
This is where I might flip on you guys and start kind of being on the on the left kind of perspective of this.
I can take it.
So
I think
the two things that I think are maybe weird to me in that regard in determining his motivation is number one, he did re-enlist in September of 2001, right? And so he could have retired basically right then, or just retired right after, I think. So I do think that there was at least some sense of either, like, yes, it could just be climber, thing. He didn't really care, but I don't know. Like, that seems like he probably felt, at least to some degree, I think a lot of people felt a temporary surge of patriotism that were serving at the time. But regardless, he did re-enlist right after 9/11. And secondly, he could have put in his paperwork Sergeant Major at Sergeant Major Academy. He could have put in, Command Sergeant Major or Sergeant Major, right? He could have petitioned in some way or probably, had some conversations where he would have been put in an administrative role that would have just been kind of just above where he was at as an E8, as a Sergeant Major. But he did choose to be a Command Sergeant Major. And so it is weird to me that he made those choices, but then left right before they deployed. Maybe at the end of the day, like, we don't know what happens in somebody's life.
Can I psychoanalyze?
And so there could be something that happened in his life. Could be something that happened in his unit, right? Where like he felt gung ho, ready to go. And then once he was kind of working in that position as a Command Sergeant Major, he was like, fuck these people. I don't like these people. I don't like what's going on. And you know what? Like, I have better aspirations and I have made connections. I'm going to go fucking run for Congress and dip out. I think that is, to be fair, would be a legitimate feelings for him to have. And I don't think that he's necessarily a climber for that or anything. What I circle back to, though, is the lies of omission, the C-SPAN interview that I think is kind of famous now, where he's nodding along as they're reading his bio about him serving in Afghanistan, and he didn't serve in Afghanistan, where he's like very particular with his words to make it feel like he was in combat when he wasn't, like that sleazy lying bullshit can't be forgiven. And again, I also want to state that's all politicians. Like, fuck them all.
Yes.
So hold on. So there's two things that I'm going to psychoanalyze. Number one, I think that for National Guard is like fairly chill, right? It's like what, a weekend a month or something like that, and then you train 2 weeks a year. Or I don't
actually
even know
did some time as an active duty guy, so he was actually like a full-time guy for a little bit.
He was activated for a while.
No, not just activated. No, he did.
Oh, did he active duty on his record?
Yeah, he did AGR. He did AGR, I believe, for 3 years. He did it as a younger soldier.
But my point is that
once you get to like CSM and like E8,
let's give
not
Connor
really. You're not doing every other weekend.
I want to hear it.
Well, he was asking. I was just saying he would be more involved at that rank than just every other.
So from a psychology standpoint, this is at least from my perspective. Okay, I'm not saying it's correct. This is my vibe on it. Right. National Guard, oftentimes the way that they sell it in the recruiting commercials is serving your local community, responding to national disasters, responding to civil unrest, and only getting called up in the event of something major, right? And so I think that you know, there's a difference in focus and priority there versus active duty, where with active duty, if you're not trying to get deployed or overseas in order to meet strange women and get drunk and get tattoos and all that kind of stuff, then there's borderline something wrong with you, right? At least for like an 18 to 22.
Calm down, all right? The people in
Yeah.
Korea are going to be very upset.
So
They aren't strange.
the
They're
point
exotic.
is that Tim Walz did 24 years, so he already made it past the like the adventurous part of the career and made it into the chiller part. And also, I would be curious about his politics at the time. There's two things that I want to address. One, there was a small but vocal part of the veteran community that were patriotic in that they wanted to prosecute the war on terror. But even very early on into the war in Iraq, they felt like that was a betrayal of priority, where instead of going after Al-Qaeda, the terrorists that attacked us, we were using it as propaganda in order to launch the Iraq war. I'm not saying that's necessarily
Hold on.
him. I'm just saying that's potential.
Counterpoint.
Potentially him.
So just to address that, like, again, potentially, but shouldn't we have clips? Shouldn't we have any kind of statement from him showing that? I haven't
Correct
seen
me if I'm
any.
wrong. He was against the surge, wasn't he?
He was there. There are
The
pictures
surge
of
was in
him at protests.
2011, 2010?
2000.
No.
No.
The war was over by 11.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
It was
sorry,
like
yeah,
seven.
There's two surges. There's two surges.
Yeah, there
Oh,
was
there's
there was a surge under Obama,
7,
wasn't
right?
there?
Yeah.
There's two surges. Yeah, there
But
was a
what
surge under Bush
was
as well.
under Obama, the response to ISIS? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know. I'm just
Sorry.
asking.
I
man.
wasn't
Hold
in
on.
the.
Let
I
me-
wasn't in the. I
let me
wasn't in the
describe this
military during the 2007 era, right? Okay. But just to like again, if that's why he decided to dip out, right? If he's like, okay, I can't support this. His other statements don't seem to support that at the
Yeah,
time.
but he
09.
probably
Sorry,
saw
it's
what
09.
happened to the Dixie
The
chicks, and he
Obama-
was like, "Fuck
Yeah.
that."
The Obama surge was in 09, not
okay, thank you,
2011.
thank you.
Okay, so and the surges for the people who weren't around at the time. Like Bush was like losing the war. Iraq was falling into even more civil unrest. There was like Shia and Sunni militias murdering the shit out of each other, and basically
That's what
people were
happens when you
starting to
bomb
say,
people. Yeah.
well, and people were saying words like Vietnam and quagmire. And so there was like two options. There was either double down or back out, and he didn't want to back out. So he doubled down, and then that was the surge. So anyway, so he would have been part of the surge, actually, if he had deployed. The other thing, though, and I'm going to speak to this from personal experience, he became a father in 2001 and 2006. And
Don't
I'll
care.
tell you, hold on. It is massively psychologically different to sign up to get killed by yourself. Like when I was 19, I didn't give a fuck. I'm ready to die, right? Who gives a shit? Even when I was married, when I was like a cop for the first 2 years or whatever, I was like, whatever, who gives a shit? Versus when you hold your child for the first fucking time, it becomes a completely different calculus.
I just so I understand what you're saying.
For the
I can
record, 06
empathize
wouldn't
with
matter
it.
because he was out by 06.
Yeah.
He
But
got out in May of
I see
05.
it like this.
But
I see it
01.
like this. And look, you were in the Corps. You were in the Corps. So you've heard this before. Was that issue to you, or do you acquire that on your own?
Yeah,
I don't give a
acquired it
fuck
on
about
your-
his. I don't give a fuck about his children. No one gave a fuck about his children except maybe him. And I know hundreds of dads who deployed, who went into the shit knowing. I knew people that didn't even get to hold their child at the birth
Yeah.
because
But
they were
Sparky-
absent because they were downrange.
Yeah,
So
they
Sparky,
died.
how many of those people are divorced now?
almost everyone who was in the military was divorced. it's
You get a ribbon. You get a ribbon. You get to wear it to the.
look.
to the
You
what
get
I
a
was
lower
saying-
EPR
Balance
if you don't
point
get
for
at least one
divorce.
divorce.
No, but see, that's kind of my point, is that people make a choice and priority, and it might have been easy. Hold on. It might have been easy for him to say, oh yeah, I'm serving my country. I'm gung-ho. I'm a master sergeant. I'm the big balls army guy, whatever. Might have been easy when he wasn't being asked to deploy. And then when he's being asked to deploy to a fucking war zone, and it's like, oh shit, there's IEDs, there's EFPs, there's insurgents, there's real
That's-
shit going down.
Like I
Okay.
said,
And
it's easy to be a
Hold on.
If
peacetime
I
soldier.
die, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Look, we're getting into a psychoanalyst
I'm
area
all
of this
for that. Just don't
conversation,
lie about
and I would really
you know?
love to hear Quinn's opinion on the psychoanalyst side of things.
Yeah, there you
Look,
go.
man, I started to read
Private
some of your
psychologist?
Substack articles to learn about you, right? Because I was like, I have no clue who
Oh,
the
boy.
fuck these people are. So I started reading up on everyone. Fabian, I'm actually scared of you, psych. Anyway,
Fabian's a
but yeah,
scary guy.
Quinn, give us your opinion. I want
I
to hear
know
your opinion
liberty.
on it, man.
Liberty is the most terrifying thing to Americans.
After
I'm
you
scared
give
of
your
it.
opinion, I do have a question as well for the group. But Quinn, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, I don't really have a huge take on the psych. I've said before, this is like the dodging deployment angle of attack is the weakest line of attack, and so I'm implicitly defending Walz just because I think that that's a weak area. And you weren't here. I made
It's
a
the
Bastiat
weakest
quote.
criticism.
It
Yeah,
is.
I meant,
That's
thank
why it's
you.
first.
No, you're good. And so
What do you mean?
I
Can
made a
you
Bastiat
explain that?
quote. Sure, I'll repeat myself. It's okay. So,
Yeah.
and no offense to you, but I'm just like, it's the weakest line of attack when you can literally just say he's a liar who has lied. Weapons of war. I used weapons of war in war. This is the key word, in war. He could say weapons of war, not in war, and that'd be technically true because he was, doing artillery training and whatnot. But he did not go to war. He has never been in combat. He implies or states that he's been in combat. We could talk about rank recognition. We could talk about how he didn't earn his rank, both because of the paperwork and because, like you said, fair point, he didn't serve the time to justify the rank. Again, all that stuff is fair. I'm saying I don't see him as a deployment dodger. I see him as somebody who put in his paperwork at a convenient time. And again, if I'm going to attack him, I'm going to attack him on actual statements that he's made, not trying to analyze weird, like psycho whatever stuff, as well as we've all sort of admitted stuff we don't perfectly know in terms of the timelines and when the papers were put in, et cetera, et cetera. Let's literally just analyze his statements, see whether he's lied, and hit him on the lies. That's my point.
I'm happy to address those two, but I think somebody else alluded to this earlier. Part of the reason why it does hit a little bit more personal, I think, for veterans or
Yeah,
whatever,
that's what I was
especially
saying.
ones who deployed, was because we saw and I'm not saying Waltz is this guy necessarily, but we saw the shitbags who were talking mad shit about, oh, I'm badass, I know what to do, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna deploy, I'm gonna kill Haji, I'm gonna blah 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 blah.
Sounds like a
And then it's like,
Fabian
oh
point.
shit. And then it's like, oh shit, we're actually
What?
deploying. And then all of a sudden they break an arm or they get pregnant or they have a medical separation
Spurs.
issue or they have
Yeah.
exactly. And meanwhile, you and your
That's something I
friends-
would say.
because
No,
because
that's something you would say. It's a point you would make of calling people out on that.
But the point being is meanwhile, you and your friends are shutting the fuck up. You might be drinking a little bit more. You might be hanging out with a little bit of looser women because you're preparing for the eventuality that there's a small but real chance that you might die in the next 6 months to a year. So you go a little crazy and then you deploy, you do your thing, and you come back. And there's a little bit of swagger to people who went down. Even I was a fobbit, right? I just stayed on the fob the entire time. But even when I came back, I still had a little bit of swagger because I'm walking around a bunch of people who have never deployed, never been in a hostile zone, never seen, Iraq, never seen Afghanistan. They've never done their job in a combat zone and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm Billy Badass, but that gave me a little bit of swagger.
So if I may,
Told
just
me basic, it changes.
So somebody claiming that but not earning that does piss people off.
let me try as well, because I had a discussion in my Discord earlier today. A lot of people were like, "No one cares about this," and that's my question to all of you. Will the average voter care about this? But let me give my 2 cents first, right, to maybe help people understand why it actually does matter. And I'm going to use terms that Twitch poll and the YouTube commentary community can probably understand. You guys remember when Boogie was exposed to have lied about his cancer, and
Yes.
he had
Do
used
I
it
remember?
for gain
2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
a week
yeah.
ago.
Used it for gain.
Like,
We
oh,
need
yeah.
somebody
Everyone-
on Twitch to be like, remember how amazing Destiny is?
Yes,
Out of nowhere for no reason.
Well, no. I'm saying this. To
I know where
say-
you're going. I
right,
see
to
it.
say that. Okay, we were all upset at that. Everyone was upset at that because he had misrepresented a state that he was in order to gain money,
Personal gain.
And
status,
sympathy.
Yeah.
things
Yeah,
like
well, yeah.
that. This is
But
the
that's
same
bookie.
thing. If someone is lying or misrepresenting the state that they are in as a veteran, as a combat veteran, as someone who has carried weapons of war in a war zone, right? It matters because they are using it to gain political clout, to gain some kind of status, and they did not actually have that state, and so that's why people might be upset. And I know it's hard for normies to understand.
I think
but that's the reason why people fucking care.
I think your analogy needs to be a little bit stronger.
Oh my god!
I think.
Yeah,
No,
I
I'm
don't
not
think
critiquing.
I'm not equating anything
I'm
that
adding
Boogie
to
did
it.
to
I'm
Tim
adding to
Walz
it.
ever.
No, hold on. I'm just adding to it. What I would say is,
imagine you're a cancer patient.
but to add to it exactly, like I think the way that analogy would be fully comparable would be that your mother died from cancer and never got a penny for it, because that's how I feel like a lot of lower enlisted soldiers that have friends that are dead, and most of whom are from suicide, from PTSD, not actually from dying in the combat, right? And have some psychological, misgivings. They probably don't have PTSD or hypervigilance, but there are moments where they're driving on the road, and then all of a sudden they have a little fit of road rage that they didn't used to have before they deployed, and it's because they remember that when people used to do that to them in Iraq, they could fucking kill them, and then they have to go like, oh yeah, I'm a human being with like a wife and kids now. It's that it would be more like your mom died of cancer, penniless and broke, and then you see the Boogie situation, and you're like, fuck that guy who's getting money from people off of clout, off of a lie.
Hold on, and just to
pathway
ram
to
it home just a
empathy.
little bit more, there's also an element of personal sacrifice too. So imagine that you had given money to Boogie out of sympathy for their for their cancer, and then you find out that it's like, oh, my hormone levels were a little out of whack 2 years ago, and I haven't checked on it since. And it's like, that's not cancer. I
mean, you guys
That's just being fat.
You guys are describing pathways. You guys are describing pathways to empathy, which is someone who's ever been through trauma would experience. But how this relates to this conversation amongst veterans, I guess Fabian, to your point, it could bridge that gap for veterans and shit like that. I mean, Boogie as an example is just fucking terrible.
But I don't think it's going to land for anybody outside of the community.
No,
that's my question.
Just
to be clear, that's my question for all of you, and I think where I want to lead the discussion next.
I'll jump.
Yeah, and we'll give it to you first, Quinn, and then we'll let everyone else go, right? But yeah, these attacks that we've seen, the swift boating arguably led to Kerry's, or was one of the factors that led to Kerry's defeat in 2004. John Kerry, if you remember. Do we think that this is a similar situation where these attacks against Tim Walz are going to be effective and going to pierce the normal community in a way that the attacks against Kerry did back in 2004? I'm going to let Quinn start off, and then
I'll jump in. I'll say no with the tentative no with an asterisk. Like, it really just depends on how hard press Marine, because that's what he was. His job was a press guy. He was writing like articles. He was basically the equivalent of fucking Sergeant Joker without the rifle. That was JD Vance. That was his.
Dude, don't shit on combat camera people.
Oh boy.
Don't shit on combat camera people.
Oh boy.
But
listen, man.
They gotta load. They gotta load their equipment the same as us, man. New mag.
Yep.
Click, click, click.
No. So I don't want to interrupt Quinn, but I call bullshit, and I'll call bullshit in a minute. Continue.
Okay, that's fine. Just save it. Save your fire. Hold your fire. But listen, like the main thing I think is like for most people, it's not gonna land. It's not gonna land until and unless someone makes the case and makes the case in a good way. Because like you're saying, the main case we're hearing is this dodging thing, which doesn't land with people. And again, it's disagreeable even in this call. The other things they're hearing is like this rank thing, which is confusing, and most people just don't know or get it. I appreciate Wick's analogy because it makes it very clear in a way that's beyond just like, well, everybody lies about their job, right? I lied about my job, you lied about your job, but everybody lies about their job. It's like, no, it's different. It is different. I agree with that. It's very much different. But it's like, until someone can make it land in a way where they can understand why it's different, it's just going to be noise. And again, I think that's mostly going to be Vance and Walz in the vice presidential debate. But
not to interject before Connor, but everyone has a brother, a sister, or uncle, or somebody that's served. So that ability to make that connection is out there. To your point, Quinn.
Everybody.
Not everybody, but a lot of people. Man, come on, God.
Man. If you don't know anyone that didn't serve during that time period,
I don't know.
I'm not sorry.
Like if you, I think everyone at least knows someone, whether it be a family member or a friend. But go ahead.
But I'm with
Connor.
I'm with Quinn that I think that two out of three of these aren't going to land. They're the number one, the dodging and deployment. It's hard to say somebody's dodging service if they served for 24 years, right? So basically, like, he still served, he still got an honorable discharge. That's not going to land, I think, outside of any circle unless they're hypercritical of him already. With claiming a rank he didn't earn, I'll tell you why. Even as a veteran, I don't give a shit about that. It's because every single time that I ever got promoted, I was expected to complete a certain amount of like courses and all that kind of stuff in order to maintain my rank and in order to grow in my rank to be eligible for the next rank or whatever. And on top of that, there are plenty of people, particularly in the Marine Corps, they push a lot of leadership down to the lowest rank possible. So I knew Lance Corporals who were doing sergeant's jobs, and I knew sergeants that were doing gunnery sergeant's jobs. And so if this dude was acting command sergeant major, meaning that he held the administrative position as the senior enlisted person of that unit, and he was responsible for administrative duties, and he did earn the rank, but he didn't complete his coursework, who gives a fuck about doing coursework?
I'm going to use another analogy for the normies to understand this and what Counterpoints is saying. Like in League of Legends, if you get to platinum, and then you get demoted after, like, before the end of the season, you fall back to gold or whatever.
And then you're just like,
still
bitch, I was platinum,
right? You'll still tell people I was platinum during my service, or platinum during the.
Can we get
this
XQC?
You will. You absolutely will.
You need an expert opinion on that.
No, look here. I'm gonna make it actually a real analogy.
I still had two more points.
He claims he earned his PhD and he was 2 credits shy.
Oh,
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I don't care if you understand what you studied and you're able to articulate it properly and you're able to work in your field and people in your field don't have major criticisms of the way you conduct your job. I don't care.
He did provisionally serve as a command sergeant major. No one denies that, right? He was provisionally serving as it. It wasn't.
Yeah, but I can break this down. Connor's making the technical argument, and Sparky brings up the critical argument. The critical argument is you can't call yourself a doctor if you're 2 credits shy of becoming a fucking doctor. You know,
but we're talking about enlisted military.
But to your point, Connor. Yeah, you were. Yes, that is a point of empathy that I have for this situation because there's clear evidence the guy did the fucking work when he was in. Right. So I'm not split on the issue.
I'd argue he did.
Before we move, I want to address the other points that I had. Before we move, I want to address the points that we had. So with swift boating in particular, the reason why I want to address this is, because I feel like the United States was a completely different place in 2004. We were way more gung-ho. We were way more gung-ho about the global war on terror. And on top of that, John Kerry, it's John Kerry, right? That was the guy who
Kerry.
So John Kerry, by the way, he actually has a badass record. He was on patrol boats in Vietnam, running up and down the fucking Mekong Delta or whatever, and then he got into a firefight with some dickhead VC on a fucking beach, jumped off the fucking thing, and allegedly killed a couple of fucking VC, right? That's a badass record. His problem was that he got swept up in the 70s with all the hippie shit, and he took his fucking medals and threw it off of a bridge. That's not going to fly in 2004.
There's way more to that story. There's way more to that story.
I'm sure there is.
Okay, we're not going to relitigate John Kerry. I'm just bringing up.
Let me.
Thank you.
Well, then I'll answer the question.
I still have a couple more points. So the point is that it's not analogous because I haven't seen Tim Walz do anything equivalent to taking his medals and throwing them into a river. I haven't seen anything like that.
He'd only have 2 to throw anyway.
So. See, if this was senior enlisted guys getting drunk and Tim Walz was in the room, his dick would crawl back up into his body over how hard he just got fucking torched.
I'm working on one of those objectives, dog.
All right, so hold on. So I'll try to be brief. So the silly point and then serious point. Don't dig on combat camera. Fuck combat camera, okay? They deployed with everybody else, but you know what they did while everybody was standing around in equipment and sweating their asses off and about to pass out in formation? They were running around the periphery taking pictures, quote unquote, where half the time they didn't even take pictures. They just didn't want to stand in formation for prolonged periods. They're the biggest fucking soft-bellied fucking pussies that have ever existed. So JD Vance being like, oh, I'm hardcore, I deployed, I was part of combat camera. Eat a dick. It wasn't that bad.
Did you just call Private Joker a pussy?
I did, but he at least slotted some VC. So final serious point. Tim Walz, weapons of war that I carried in war. The reason why this is probably the one that actually does stick with me a little bit, to the point that I don't think I can necessarily vote for him, is because he's using his veteran status, in which he had the least exposure to combat out of most veterans. And then he's using that in order to propose and enforce legislation against his fellow Americans, where other Americans have more experience with firearms in combat and war than he does. That's my biggest gripe.
And there is questions about some of the things he has talked about. And one of the things that comes up a lot is the Bagram statement.
Yeah.
He did go to Bagram as a United States representative.
Yes.
So
he was
to
on the
answer the
tarmac as a
question,
representative, not as a soldier, but he implied he was a soldier. Go ahead.
So you asked to the panel, Wick, is this going to matter to normies in this election? I don't think this is going to matter. I think this is going to have like an incredibly small effect, if at all. I think when we look at all of the candidates, maybe JD Vance aside, I don't think America has dug that deep into him as of yet. When we talk about the moral character of all of these people, they're all pieces of shit, and everybody voting for them knows they're pieces of shit. Kamala Harris is a lying sack of shit who speaks out of both sides of her mouth. So is Walz, and so is Trump. They are all of low moral character. They have been proven to be liars over and over and over again. And so I don't think this line of attack in this particular election is going to be that effective, because I think every voter knows they're voting for a lying sack of shit. They're voting off of policy positions, and they're voting off of what. Well, hold on. They're voting off.
Don't
of policy
apologize for interrupting Scott. Anyway,
they're voting off of policy. They're voting.
I'll get there later.
Okay. All right. Yeah. They're voting off policy position, and they're voting off of which team they think represents their values. And most importantly, I would say, especially with the left, but also with the right, they're voting off of not so much their values, but their ideology, right? Harris is, alluding to leftist socialist ideology. I mean, even her own phrases, are Marxian phrases, and Trump is trying to, capture this populist, slowly but surely getting more economically fascistic, not necessarily socially as of yet. He's far more liberal than most Republicans, I would say, more center left in his social beliefs and policies than your typical Republican. But in economic policy and in immigration, definitely not so much. And so I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact. What I think the Republicans and the right are making a huge mistake by trying to nail something that isn't going to be effective, instead of coming out in arms and saying Kamala is dodging. She's not giving interviews. She's full of shit. She has no policy positions. The only policy position she has is one that was in Trump's Agenda 47, which is something she voted against as the tiebreaker vote in the Senate, right? Like they need to be attacking the fact that she's running a shadow campaign, or the fact that she's working with Google, like actual nefarious, large scale manipulation of information and things of that nature. Not, hey, this slimy politician is a slimy politician. Duh. And so is Trump. Like, everybody knows it.
Yeah. Look, hold on. I still got to answer this. Okay. Look, honestly, it's not going to make a big deal, because first of all, Tim Walz is not running for president of the United States. He's running for ran candidate. People are going to look at it. Veterans are going to go, Most veterans, honestly, when they see the policies of Kamala Harris, if we look at her history, because her policy is on day one, in the first 100 days, if Congress doesn't pass gun legislation, she has come out and stated in her 2020 campaign that she would write an executive order to confiscate people's weapons. And that'll be a high velocity exchange of ideas, I'm sure, in some places in America. It's not. Damn. If Kamala had policies, there would be policies to run against, but right now there isn't. Right now, all we know is Kamala is brat, and I'm talking.
No, hold on. To be fair, her website also vaguely mentions reproductive freedom without actually having a single policy attached to it, because her website has no policies. She has no agenda. She has no plan that she's put out there. She's
but there's
just
1,000 ways to donate
off of the media telling her how it is.
And that policy doesn't really matter to me, because I'm a guy. I already got that.
I want to bring it back a little bit to the Walz stuff. We can get into the Kamala stuff. Like, I do shows all the time. We can absolutely have a show on this, right? But I wanted to kind of like focus on
Yeah, sorry for
different
distracting.
aspects.
I apologize for
Okay.
distracting. I was just saying I think those aspects are what people are actually
more-
going
are
to care
more
about.
responsive.
Like I
relevant.
think
got
people
you.
know. I just think Trump's such a slimy piece of shit that like attacking a VP candidate for being a slimy piece of shit is like, who the fuck are you winning over with that?
Yeah,
Like
my pants are
everybody
wet,
that's gonna
and you're
vote for
telling me it's
Trump
raining.
is already willing to pull the lever for a lying sack of shit. And the same is true for Kamala. So like I don't understand why we're trying to go after a VP candidate that nobody's gonna give a fuck about in a week and a half until the VP debate, which they'll give a fuck about them for like 3 more days after that, and then forget he fucking exists.
I know
because Americans are retarded.
No, so hold on real quick. The reason why that point is so important is because this is a spat between Waltz and Vance where they're going to dick measure about their records or whatever. And I do think that like Waltz is like a little bit vulnerable here, but at the same time, if you expand your scope even slightly to the presidential candidates, then you got Trump, who dodged Vietnam, talks shit about John McCain,
Hey,
said that he
you
likes
serve.
his heroes, to not have been captured. He said, I know more
Fuckers
than the
and
generals,
losers.
like all that kind of shit. Like, and then I would assign some level of culpability for the Afghanistan withdrawal to him. I know other people wouldn't. But the truth is that as soon as you expand outside of that, you have just as many rocks to throw at the Trump campaign as you do at the Harris-Waltz campaign.
Trump did serve though, dude, for 4 years.
In what? The fucking academy? It is. Sorry, I don't want to be homophobic, but it
Commander in
is.
chief, baby, he won the game.
No,
thought you were
that's
talking about his
yeah.
military
Trump.
academy in high school.
I love
I was
all
about
of
to
you.
be very angry. Okay.
I love you guys so much.
That's
Well,
funny.
I wasn't sure if you were going to be a good contributor, Audacity. I'll be honest with you, but you're turning out
wow,
all right.
throwing some
Yeah, he's
shade.
giving me
Thanks,
some
man. I
fun
really
here,
appreciate that.
Right?
Quinn, well, I
know
want to
you.
make. You said you had some responses and things like that. And I want to make sure you got a chance to.
I'm gonna hit
hop in.
that. Be
You were
right
trying
back.
to interrupt Scott
Sure.
earlier, but go ahead.
Well, no. Listen, I try not to bowl people over. I'm going to be like PvP. You know PvP. He's very aggressive online, but on their panels, he tends to be kind of shy. I guess I'm like that. No, I was just going to say it's a vibes-based election. It's a vibes-based campaign on both sides. You're voting for people based off of whether or not you vibe with them, whether or not the vibes are right with them. You're not voting on policy. because
on
the
fucking
policy. No.
TikTok, yeah. Fair enough.
No, because the policies aren't there on either side. Like you can say there are policies, there really aren't policies.
Trump
Like,
has tons of
Trump-
policies.
Trump has
No,
put
Trump
out
has
more
a
policies
detailed
in 5 minutes
set
than
of
Kamala
policies.
has in her entire career, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to
he
say
hasn't
they're
put out
good
stuff.
policies.
Didn't say they were great. I
I'm
just said he puts out more policies.
Yeah.
He's put out stuff
Well,
that he
no,
will
I
then
mean-
disavow later. But sure, he's put out stuff. My point
okay.
is being that-
I don't.
Hold on.
I don't
You
trust.
got to
voting
let
based on
Quinn
vibes.
finish.
They're
You got to
voting
let
on
Quinn
vibes.
finish.
It's okay. It's fine. I got it. But they're voting based on vibes, and so like the vibes on Walz. I've said before, like. They're both they're both like big government liberals. That's Kamala and Walz. They're both big government liberals. And then the vibes on Walz versus J.D. Vance, they're both like nominally socialists. So like I think ultimately it's like, do you want a socialist of this color or do you want a socialist of that color? Do you want a blue tie? Do you want a red tie? Do you want somebody who's like pro-natalist or
Thank you.
pro-reproductive rights?
Thank you that the ANCAP doesn't have to be the only one to say like, hey, you know these people are socialists.
You're
right?
not the only
They're
one,
just a
man. I'm
different vibe.
totally on that point as well. Where it's when I
Socialist,
prefaced
not
it,
communist, to be clear.
I
but-
prefaced my point because I don't know anybody before I came
Well,
in here. I
those are the same
prefaced my
thing.
points, but like
Oh no, they're not.
I'm not
Yes, they are.
married
All right.
to these candidates like MAGA is or
American
like
Chase.
Blue Anon is. You know, I'm voting the way I'm voting because it's just strictly policy and what I remember from living under the Trump administration, which, you know, it was an economic moment of prosperity for me in that time, and I equate a lot of my success to that time. So it's a bias that it's just inert, it's built into me that I experienced that happened, and that's what I'm looking forward to should Trump get reelected.
And the memes are so much better.
Yeah, but
Hold on,
besides that point, like I'm not unempathetic to the Kamala campaign and to the leftist America. You know, it's got to be hard right now to have a candidate that should be nailing Trump on policy discussions and just isn't. Like you should know what the policies are in house right
She's
now.
running against Joe Biden. She's running against Joe Biden. Every ad she has is acting like she's not the vice president of the United States of
That's
America.
a little.
Yeah.
Like she ran. They ran a fucking
Hold
ad.
on, what?
They ran an ad
When you
a
say
couple
running
weeks
against
ago.
Joe Biden,
okay,
hold on,
yeah, I
hold
get
on,
your
hold
point.
on.
I get your point.
Elaborate.
She's running
I
against
don't.
policies she was part of.
No, wait.
That's
What
what-
policy that she's part of is she running against?
Well, the immigration,
she's
for
going to
example.
make
I thought you
tips.
said.
Tax on
Hold on.
tips.
I thought earlier.
Tax on tips.
Earlier.
Tax on tips.
Earlier, you had said that we don't know what Kamala's policies are. So again, now you're saying that she's running against policies.
No,
and
it's really simple logic, right? There's negative positions and there's positive positions. The lack of having a positive position doesn't mean that she doesn't have negative positions. Her entire campaign currently is negative positions, with the exception of
tax
an amorphous positive position on price gouging now, right? An amorphous position on reproductive freedom. She doesn't have any actual policies there. And then she has one specific policy, which is from Trump's Agenda 47,
Yes.
which is not taxing tips.
I'll back him up.
And she's actively
the rest of
hypocritical on
her
the
positions are negative positions, and many of those negative positions are like
They're
pretending
policy,
like
though.
she's not the VP
No,
or that
hold
she's
on.
not the
Hold
fucking
on,
Hold on,
like
no, I have
she
to,
doesn't
you
give
know,
authority.
I
over
have
the
to make this point or I'm gonna fucking explode. She's being actively hypocritical on policy because of tax on tips. She was the deciding vote on tax on tips, and she's sitting close already to the point
Pause.
of power that it doesn't need to
Pause.
be a policy position.
Flip flopper.
Pause. To be fair,
I can't believe
hold on.
this.
To be
First of all,
a
fair,
politician being a
to be
flip flopper.
fair,
Who would have thought?
hold on. Just to
First time hearing
be
this.
fair to Kamala, even though I fucking right.
You fuck them out, Carrot?
There is almost
Amen.
never a bill that runs through Congress that is like one page. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, like
bills
yes,
and
she
all
There
that.
voted
is never a
against this.
bill.
She voted for the expansion of the IRS, which would include, and she was the deciding vote, which would include, additional agents to go after and audit people for that. And now she's going against it. But it's not like that bill wasn't like 1,000 other things.
Can I respond?
Just to be fair.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
can
then
I-
we got to
can I-
get other people in because I
Yeah,
know
that's
that
fine. I mean,
Counterpoints are
that's
wanting
great.
in,
That's-
and Quinn
yeah.
and Aircraft
Yeah.
Sparky finish.
We can make the argument that because bills are bundled like that she makes a vote on something and that's a consequence of the bill. But
It's
that
not like
shows,
she was vocal against it. Yeah.
yeah, it shows incompetence. It shows that you don't know what you're voting for when you are the deciding vote in the Senate. That's a bad thing.
Or it shows a lack of principles, I think. Right?
Yeah,
And let's
exactly.
be honest, no one reads a bill anyway.
Even if she was this whole time against that specific position of the bill, it shows that she doesn't care about violating people's rights, and she doesn't care about working class people as long as she gets the compromise and the political power
to the
that
point
she
that
wants.
you made. But yeah, it's just
She's
I
not
understand you're
incompetent,
trying
just
to like
doesn't
steel man
the
that
real
side, but it's just so
Hold on.
apparently hypocritical. of her.
So
$20.
we needed.
Yeah, no, I
Hold on, let me
always
get my
stand
super
in
chat in.
opposition.
Let me get my
Hold on,
super
money,
chat in, and then
money,
I'm gonna
money.
we're gonna pass it to counterpoints. $20 from Artemis Fowl. Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the Senate that authorizes the IRS to go after poor people like tax on tips. It doesn't matter if it really happens. The bill size doesn't matter. She had plenty of free time. Thank you for the $20. Counterpoints, you have the floor.
Okay. So we're talking about strategy here for the what is it, like less than 90 days now or something like that remaining in the election? I don't even know how much it is, but it's almost nothing in the scope of elections. I remember 2016, that election, that felt like a solid 3 years of campaigning because it pretty much was. Whereas this feels like a really compressed campaign because Biden didn't even, hide in Biden or whatever, those memes or whatever. He was staying in the fortress. He was doing the fortress arc until the last year. And then in the past few months, we got Kamala out there. But what Kamala is doing, at least I think from a tactical or strategic level, is she is keeping her cards close to the chest because right now she is the nebulous not Trump. And on top of that, she's leading in some polls right now. So as long as she's not Trump and leading in polls, that's a position of strength. She will have to come out of the fortress arc. She will have to articulate her policies. But every time she articulates a policy, she runs the risk of losing people who are picking her as not Trump. As an example, One of the things that Aircraft Sparky brought up tonight was within 90 days, if they don't, if Congress doesn't take action on gun control, then I'm going to do an executive order. Now, the clip that I saw was for red flags and universal background checks, not the mandatory buyback. But at the same time, that already makes me frigid. Then when Tim Walz and her go on to the first speech that they're doing as the presumptive candidates of their party, and they're saying, we're doing an assault weapons ban. That's the kind of thing that I don't know whether or not I can get over. I probably can't get over it. That might
Will it be an executive order within 90 days? Who knows?
But then that makes me...
We don't have a policy position on our website, so maybe it will be an EO. Who knows?
So maybe I'm not her target demographic, right? You know, cis, straight, white male, military veteran, right? Maybe I'm not her target demographic.
You should
but
be.
She might have lost a voter because she took a solid position. And that's why I think she's avoiding solid
There's
position.
a lot of opinions I have on that kind of thing. I get why it makes sense strategically. I get why it makes sense strategically to be as vague as possible, because if you're as vague as possible, people can kind of wish cast onto you what they think.
Yeah, it's like a Rorschach test.
Exactly.
Hey, I gotta
that's what Trump was in 2016.
I gotta call out this point from the chat. I
got $20 more that I gotta read too,
Okay.
and I want to make my point as well. And I'll make my point before I read the $20, and then we'll get back to the show. But if I had my druthers, I'm voting for Kamala Harris unless something drastically changes, right? Like she comes out and like, I want to kill all white people or something. Okay, fair enough. But as it stands now, I don't want Trump to win. I want Kamala Harris to win. But the problem I'm having is I'm not sure what her policies are. I know Trump's policies, and I know I don't want them. But it's vague Democrat. But here's the thing. When we say vague Democrat, every Democrat has slightly different ideas of what that is. And so that's what I mean by filling in the blanks.
That's what the primary is for. That's what the primary is for, because when you do a primary, the only people you're talking to are the highly politically involved.
Yes.
Right? Because the normie, I don't really give a fuck about politics people don't pay attention to primary elections. It's the people that actually care about policy and that show up to vote in primaries. And so when people do...
Yeah, she did.
When
talk
do people
about
do the primary
price
fight?
Recently, and she also
price gouging.
She's also expected to release a policy.
She doesn't know the economic terms.
But Wick, this is kind of
because price controls is something the government does. She's talking about price fixing with cartels. But I just want to say, like, yes, that exists. That's what happens when the DNC picks a candidate as opposed to having a primary process, is that their policy positions aren't fleshed out against other Democrats. And the same is true on the Republican side. They're not fleshed out where in that battle where people that actually care about policy are there. And in the grand like Democrat versus Republican, presidential race, it's a lot more vibes, it's a lot more emotion, it's a lot more, picking out the norms.
This is reinforcing my point, and I know nobody necessarily disagreed with it, but at the same time, like coming out with a firm policy on price controls, every single time you do that, you have liberal and you have progressive, and progressive is going to have some leftist component to it, right? Leftists and progressives, they might love the prohibition of price gouging, but every mixed economy capitalist or capitalist, anybody to the right of Bernie Sanders is like, how are you going to determine gouging? How are you going to enforce this? How does this not make artificial, ceilings and floors within the economy, which has predictable negative effects in the economy that like every business major from like Econ 101 could tell you is predictably true. And so as a result, you're losing some libs there. So that's the thing. It's like, I'm just going to say it again, is every time she takes a firm position, she loses somebody.
I get the strategy. Let me make a little more money. $20 again from Artemis Fowl to say and thank you for the membership as well, Artemis.
$20 from Project Veritas. Okay. From Project Victory.
Lincoln Project.
Oh no, this is Artemis Fowl is not connected with Progressive Victory. I am, and I think Counterpoint still is.
I still am.
Yeah, so that's
Oh, hey, good for you, dude. Fucking, it's obviously
$20 from Artemis Fowl. I like how Kamala Harris is actively trying to distance herself from Biden administration failures while trying to claim all of its benefits. The great thing is that the more she talks, the more she looks like Hillary Clinton. Thank you for the $20. But
hey, so before we discuss
the same laugh doesn't mean they're the same person.
Right? This is really, really relevant. Someone in the chat asked. She can vote against something and then decide to vote for that thing later. I explained to that person in chat, I'm going to say it again here. It is terrifying that out of all the Project 2025 policies or Trump policies she could have picked to go against, she picked the one that she fucking cast the vote for, man. That's like...
But she didn't know what she was voting for. She didn't read anything. No one reads those damn bills.
Hold on.
That
When
was
it comes
over
to the-
1,200 pages.
When it comes to the tax for tips thing, that's a new. I don't believe, and you can correct me if
No,
I'm wrong.
but you
that
guys are missing my
specifically was
point.
in
She
the
could
bill.
have picked. She could have picked anything off
what
of
do
the
you thin
list.
blue line people love to say? Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Dude, she could have picked anything off of the list of
But-
policy points to go
I was gonna say
against. To
this.
You
counter.
cannot
Y'all
call
recorded
her
your
a
tip?
hypocrite. You can't call her a hypocrite because I assure you, she didn't read. She didn't read the policy.
you
Just
go.
like
There
Wick
you go.
pretending,
It's besides
just
the
like
point.
Wick pretending that he could be pushed off of not voting for Kamala. He starts off his statement with, "I'm voting for Kamala Harris." But
Okay,
maybe
well,
I could be
no, no, no,
convinced.
no,
He
no,
kind of
no, don't-
Tim
don't
Walz
finish
is the
this.
idea
Finish
that he could be
Why
changed.
is this
Do
the
this
problem?
after
Kamala
this
says
is
all white people.
You're missing my point. It's after the fact. An advisor or herself could have told her, hey, maybe don't go with this announcement on no tax on tips because we have a historical record that you voted to
That
not
no one
do
will
it.
care about. I assure
hold
you.
on,
This
hold
doesn't
on,
Look,
happen.
hold on. I still have to weigh
It
in
doesn't
on all
in
this.
a real way. It
Hold
does
on,
not matter
yeah.
what you've done before. The question is, what are you going to do for me when you get elected, right?
You do
So
really-
hold-
that
Right,
is
yes,
kind of
but
the
that
ball
is
game for a lot of
very,
people.
very
So-
soft on people when it's so easy to
No.
convey that
No, no,
she's
no, no.
ignorant.
Okay.
No, hold
We
on,
don't
hold on,
agree
hold
with
on.
this.
Two
This
things
is
here.
the state of
Two
play,
things here.
Audacity. We don't agree with it. It's the state of play, and that's one thing you need to understand. And again, you're like an idealist. I hate to disabuse you of these notions. In politics, these people are always going to rhetorically just vibe out and try to say the thing that will get them votes, that'll get them sympathy, that'll get them whatever. It's a pathos argument. It's a vibes argument. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is the real life.
No,
And they're not
I
being held
get it. I
accountable
get
for
it.
So hold
That's
on.
my other team.
I
Hold
get
on.
it.
So two things.
Also, never be out of the
Right.
chat unless they
Hold
pay
on.
money.
Right.
But it was a good point that they made.
True. Two things, right? So the first point is, number one, it doesn't matter if Kamala Harris is inconsistent because Google will work for her, the media will work for her, Hollywood will work for her, the musicians will work for her, the record labels will work for her.
Without a doubt.
Literally everyone with
Except for
any
Phil Labonte
level
from All That
of
Remains.
influence in culture
Yeah.
will back her and will gaslight you like they didn't fucking say the exact opposite thing. The same people that told you over and over and over again that Joe Biden didn't have any cognitive issues, he just had a stutter, 2 weeks after he dropped out, were like, oh no, actually he's been having these mental issues this whole time, and Democrats have been saying this all along, and I don't understand where you Republicans are coming from. That's number one. Number two, the Republican candidate Trump is no goddamn different. Look at Trump's first 2 years and then compare his last 2 years, and what you will see is two different fucking presidencies.
Yes.
First 2 years of Trump, he's a pro-war
agree.
neocon. Last 2 years of Trump, he's trying to pull out of every fucking Middle Eastern blunder. Jared Kushner is pushing peace policies and trade deals, and he's talking about the prison military industrial complex. You know why? Because Trump is just as retarded as Kamala, and he surrounds
I
himself
can
with
argue
sycophants that give him whatever fucking positions he's supposed to have, and he kept the carryover retard rhinos that were a part of the fucking Republican establishment
I could
for
I'd
like
probably
20,
beat that.
20, 30, 40 years before, and then he has new people. Is he gonna what new crooked retards is Trump gonna bring in? Who
I
fucking
could
knows what his presidency looks
probably.
like?
Here's what
Sorry, Fabian, but I could
Before
probably
Audacity,
beat
Before
that.
you get into Audacity, I'll just say this. Yes, I disagree with you too, Fabian. He is not equally retarded to Kamala. He's more retarded. But sorry, go ahead. Audacity.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No. Kamala is so damn retarded, they will not let her talk outside of her canned speeches. You ask her how to fix
What are you
inflation,
talking about?
and she
There
stumbles
will
against
be- she
herself.
is good
Hold
at
on,
being
you
good
think
at
that-
advisors.
hold
No,
on,
no, no.
you've made an
No, no,
accusation.
very
You
quick.
think
I'll
that
respond to that.
she's being
I
like
wanna respond to that
kept
very
from
quickly.
the media. I
Obviously she is. So she would have done full interviews. Trump is
Why?
done.
Yeah.
Trump because
why?
it
Like
doesn't-
strategically, I
it
get why
doesn't
she should, like,
right.
from a moral perspective.
Strategically.
But strategically, why would she? She's ahead.
Because the media is
that's
now
what I'm saying.
asking questions. Where are your policies, and why won't you talk
It
to
hasn't
us?
affected her polls.
People don't care.
negatively.
People don't care. People
You
don't care.
haven't seen a
People
poll.
care that
today, yeah.
Hold
You
on,
haven't seen a poll
people
for
don't-
this
people-
past week. You've
people
seen a
this
poll
past
for a
week,
week
I've seen
behind.
care.
Polls.
What?
Gotta check the
People
polls
don't
now.
care.
The polls.
People
Yeah, me
do
too.
not
on
care.
Six Pants.
They do not care. Just respond very quickly. Listen, I would surmise that Kamala Harris is likely more intelligent than Trump. The problem is that Kamala Harris has zero charisma. Like, the longer Kamala Harris is around, the more people get uncomfortable. Like Kamala Harris, Michael Malice said it perfectly. And I'm not saying she's a drunk. I'm just saying when you see her, she's like America's wine mom, right? She's awkward. Sometimes she's slurring for whatever fucking reason. She's laughing for no goddamn reason.
She's slurring?
And Trump,
She's
yeah, she does it all the time. Yes, she does it all the time. Just look up the videos. And Trump, on the other hand, right? Trump says retarded shit, and it always gets a laugh. Like, he has charisma.
He's funny.
You can hate the guy. You can hate the guy all much you want. But he did that interview. He did that interview with the
Musk.
Female Black Journalists Association, whatever
Yeah.
the fuck it was, right? And he had
Very
the
rude,
audience
disrespectful
laughing.
questions.
He had the audience laughing half the time. You had an audience of people that
Do you
were
think they
there
were laughing
to
with
dislike
him or
him.
at
There's a
him?
fucking nuke. There's a
Yeah.
fucking
Hold on.
hurricane
Do
coming.
you think they
You
were
should
laughing
blow it
with
up.
Yeah.
him or at him?
Yeah,
Yes.
but
Yes.
here's the thing. Even if you're laughing at him, you're diffusing your own righteous indignation. He's
Beautiful.
breaking down those walls. Trump is charismatic. You can hate him as much as you want. You can think he's stupid. You can think he has bad policies or that he has no policies. He just goes after whatever fucking sycophant in the room told him was good the time before. You can think all of those things, but don't deny that he is incredibly charismatic and funny. Like, he sets things up like a fucking stand-up comedian. Kamala doesn't have that. That's why Kamala's hiding. Because if you put her in a place and you give her enough time to speak, people get weirded out.
Connor's attempting to summon Slim
Yes,
Show there.
Connor, please.
Yes.
I
so-
can call on people. I promise you, I'm able.
I'm
to see
sorry.
their
I'm
hands
sorry,
raising.
man. This is the first time I've ever done it. I'm nervous.
Okay.
We'll be gentle.
When it comes to politics, like I'm not saying that TV has completely changed everything or whatever, but I think that it's different compared to having like an ideological position in which your ideology can never be applied because you're just some random schmo, you're average Joe Blow, you don't have that large of an impact on politics, versus money and friendships and ego and ideology all smashing together. It easily explains what we view as hypocrisy. But oftentimes what politicians are doing, this is actually what is kind of turning me off from wanting to be an elected politician, is they're not so much coming to the table with an ideology and a set of principles that they are going to stick to no matter what as they make their way through the political machine. What they do, because we're in a democracy, which again, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones, is they're playing to a coalition of people that they think will allow them to allow them to seize power. But what ends up happening is that's a constantly changing calculus of who's going to get them power and who's going to allow them to implement any kind of agenda whatsoever, and then who's going to allow them to maintain power. And that's why we see all these waffling. So for instance, just as an example, Kamala Harris was a tough on crime San Francisco DA who one of her most famous things was trying to keep people in jail against the orders of the federal government. And also, what was the other one that was big? Lock up parents of truant children. That's what she was famous for. She was famous for being like a hardcore
Or withhold exoneratable, evidence.
Yeah.
things
well,
like
that guy's a serial killer. But anyways, the other part, but now, in 2020 or whatever, she was like BLM bailing out, protesters and, we need police reform, this, that, the other, or whatever. And people rightly point out that hypocrisy. But what she's doing is she's making a calculation on what's popular at the moment that will allow her to seize and maintain power. That's what's going on.
Yeah, they're all narcissists. They're all narcissists. The difference is that Trump is a grandiose narcissist instead of a fucking covert narcissist. Trump wants to be loved, so he'll say whatever the fuck makes you happy and do whatever he thinks will make him famous as the greatest president ever.
Yep.
Whereas all these other politicians that we're used to will do whatever lines their pockets with a lot of fucking money and sell out anybody so that they can have beachfront property that is totally going to be swept away by global warming in 5 years.
Do you think George W. Bush Jr. was a narcissist, or do you think he was like a defunct prince? Like he was part of like
I think he might be an exception. And the reason I say that is
like
because
he's
of his paintings.
political royalty that
honestly,
was shoved into that position and then used in
I think
order
he
to line the
deeply
pockets of the
regrets
people
everything
around
that
him.
he's done. I think he hates his family and hates all of it. Like I think you can feel that in his paint. I think you can feel that in his paintings. Like I think he feels personally responsible.
I've
for
never
Iraq.
seen a
So,
George
won't say
W.
it.
Jr. painting.
But he was
As
he was
someone-
the
You never seen-
nicest
hold on, no,
president
he's done.
I've ever
He's
met.
learned to paint. He has learned to
Yeah,
paint, and it's
that's
actually a
all we're
really
saying.
good, kind of like impressionist style painting. And mostly what he paints
Okay.
is
But
the
some really
faces of
painting, some
veterans.
really-
Okay.
I
I
want
wanna-
the faces of veterans who have been.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I wanna
I
move
just
it back.
I really
want
want to bring a good point to what Fabian
Are
said
you
a
going
second
to, or are we
ago.
going to talk about Walz some more? Go
No.
ahead.
Yeah, sorry, but I feel like I'm the most moderate voter in here. I feel like you guys have been doing this for a while, and you kind of have just really good
You were the
like
one
set
true
up
moderate?
opinion.
Moderate
Okay.
is moderate a synonym for no.
I don't know.
low vote, no
I
offense.
probably used
Like-
the word wrong because, like I said, I've
Okay,
been working on an objective.
Just
but,
say normie. It's chill. We're
yeah,
with you.
normie. I'm the most normie voter in here, and to Fabian's point, it stands to reason that you can kind of build to Trump's you can kind of rely on Trump's ego to give you what you want, and it's easily
Pretty much, yeah.
translatable to the population.
That's why I hate populism. That's
Oh.
literally why I hate populism, is because it's the rule of the mob.
But it works.
Works sometimes.
Okay, so I just want to
Sometimes.
interject. There's a comment from
Please go
Armis
ahead.
Fowl for $5. Kamala Harris's father actually enacted price controls in 1970, which resulted in economic collapse and a famine. Thank you for the $5. But I do want to add
That was
also
funny.
that this, again, ostensibly,
Oh,
is a
that's for
panel
Connor,
on
actually.
Waltz
Go
and
ahead.
his service, but that has
Yeah,
become
we've done some
so
articles.
not important to anyone, even on this
It's a
fucking
vice president.
panel, that we've decided not to talk about that anymore, even though I
You
gathered you
personally-
all
No, we
to
should-
talk about
You
it.
poisoned the well. No, you
We should.
poisoned the well because you said, like, does this matter to normies? Is this
election.
going
Yes,
to
but I have
swing the election?
other
And so
questions.
it's pushed us to
No,
right, it's
there-
pushed
there
us.
is-
So-
me.
So
This is
wrangle
me.
us
I'm
back.
here.
Wrangle
There
us
is
back
meat.
and ask the questions that are.
Yeah.
No,
that
hold
are-
on,
that
hold
are
on.
significant.
I want to throw some meat out into the pool of sharks.
Boy,
Okay.
I have a question for you.
The
though,
the
Connor,
main
before
the
we
main
do all that.
thing. Before we do all that, I'm trying to help you out.
Fine. Go.
Okay, so one of the points that Quinn so eloquently made was the fact that there is meat on the bones for different criticisms of Waltz. And I think the one in particular that I think is the most is the weapons of war comment, that I carried in Weapons of War. And you can, if you're an apologist for Waltz, you can say, he's been campaigning all day. He's a little tired. He was speaking extemporaneously, so he had a little flub or whatever. But at the same time, that doesn't change the policy that he's pushing for, which should upset a healthy chunk of pro-gun veterans who don't necessarily even like Trump, but he's using his inflated status in order to push for gun control because he's so horrified by small arms and what they can do in the combat theater. Well, he's never seen that. And so he's effectively standing on the dead bodies of veterans and the dead bodies of Middle Eastern and North African civilians in order to push domestic gun control. And sorry, here's one more uber important point. I do not know, I cannot understand, besides actual criminal insanity, how the Democrats can say out of one side of their mouth, we are moments away from a fascist dictator taking over the United States of America and instituting a Christian theocratic regime that will deny civil liberties and rights to gay people, brown
Handmaid's
people, and
Tale.
black people for generations, but we should ban assault weapons right now. That is fucking crazy. That is a crazy thing to say out loud.
It's because they want power, they want
Connor,
guns, and
2024.
Waltz actually showed that as governor under the COVID lockdowns, where he allowed his police forces to shoot citizens on their porches with paintball guns to wrangle the cats back
With
into the
paintball
house.
guns.
That was for
Okay.
the Boston bombing, though.
If you ask me to do that, I'm just going to admit to being a jack.
Of course you would, because you're an authoritarian bootlicker.
Yeah.
With
If somebody said, "Hey,
paintball
can you
guns.
shoot people with
They're
paintball
not
guns
really
to get them to go back
I
inside
want-
the house?"
Quinn
You
had
would
a
use
question.
your badge. You would
Hold on.
use your badge as your authority.
Quinn
You would,
had a
you would be
question.
Eric
for-
Cartman without the fat.
Quinn
There's
had
diseases.
hold on, my God. Quinn had a question for counterpoints, and I want to
Well,
hear what it is.
I
I'm
did.
very curious. Go ahead.
Well, you mentioned are you pulling a sorry this is a digression, but like you mentioned you're considering what an exploratory campaign. You're pulling a Brandon Herrera. You're gonna run for public office. What is this?
Yeah. So okay. So fantasy cards on the table. It's like according to a healthy chunk of people on the right, I'm a rhino Republican, right? I'm a moderate. I'm not with
Got that
MAGA,
right.
et cetera, et cetera. So, anyways, so there are 35 to 45% of the Republican Party that are moderate or corporate Republicans, and they probably have a shitload of money. And on top of that, there's real values that probably need to be refused in the Republican Party for the Republican Party to be even viable in the next century. You need fiscal conservatives to have an articulable and intelligent agenda. You need social conservatives to draw the line between liberty and order. And then you need MAGA to not feel like their own country has abandoned them. And then there's also like the moderate and corporate Republicans who don't want to collapse the economy and actually want a healthy mixed economy, mixed capitalist economy. And so bringing all these ideas together into a fusion is if Trump gets defeated, that's the next step, right? And the truth is, Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk and all these stupid motherfuckers can make $250,000 a year being conservative pundits, then why not me?
Yeah, but see, the problem is where you live. You're not gay or Cuban enough. So you're going to have to learn some Spanish or start sucking some cock.
We've talked about this. As a matter of fact, in the Lincoln Project, one of the stories that came out about the Lincoln Project was one of their founding members was soliciting young men and offering them jobs for like nude pics and shit. And I was like, I missed my window. So,
dude, you just send them to me. I'll pay. Fuck.
Wait. Okay.
ahead,
Reset. We're gonna reset. I don't know. I don't know where we're going.
Talk
talk about sending nudes to Republicans for political power.
I don't want to go down this rabbit hole.
My issue.
Potter 2026. Let's go.
Absolutely.
So my issue with coming in, bringing it back a little bit. My issue with this idea of attacking him because of the position of, I use weapons of war in war. My issue with that is, who is that directed towards? Right. So not the attack on him, but who is he trying to speak to? And because if he's not speaking he's not speaking to Democrats, because Democrats are already anti-gun. Or if they're liberals, and if they're communists, they're pro-gun, right? So he's not speaking to either of those people, right? Because it's not helping him in that regard. The most elections in the United States, the demographic that decides who wins or who loses is white, middle class, suburban moms and women. Right, because that is the group, that is the demographic that will shift from Republican to Democrat very easily in one election or the other. You saw this with Glenn Youngkin in Virginia running for governor, right? Even though the Democrats outspent the fuck out of him, the reason that he won is he said, "Look at what the crazy shit they're putting in our schools, and look at like the LGBTQAI plus MAP WTF shit that they're putting in our schools. Look at these books." And white suburban moms were like, "Holy fuck, they're coming for our kids. They're doing crazy shit." That's who swings. So when he's doing that, that's who he's talking to. He's using his expertise for a group of people that have no knowledge about guns to go, this guy knows what he's talking about. And so the thing is when you attack him on that, I don't know that it effectively speaks to those to those women. I don't think it helps at all.
No, Fabian, not only do I agree with you, I feel like you diagnosed it correctly, because when you were asking, the reason why I said Democrats is probably because I was including white suburban women in my calculus or whatever. But but I think that it's the veneer of authenticity when it comes to a hot button issue, because he's a veteran, right? He carried an M16. Right. He served alongside a bunch of badasses. He was in there for 24 years. He was discharged honorably. That speaks to the military side. And then he was also in that same clip. He's like, "And I'm a hunter." So let's see the NRA try to criticize me. Meanwhile, if you actually go look at his hunting pictures, he's carrying a 5-shot semi-automatic Fudd wood furniture fucking shotgun, and he's wearing a bright orange vest. So hold on.
The NRA line alone shows you that he's talking to people that know nothing. Because people that are post-2A hate the NRA because they suck.
Yeah, he has the exterior appearance of a gun guy to people who are not gun people, but to gun people, this is borderline worse stolen valor than the fucking military shit. Because if you're a boomer Fudd hunter who wants to ban AR-15s after serving in the military, you're the worst kind of gun person.
Okay. I hate to say this, I really do, but the correct answer is to lean into gang violence and black criminals, because 97% of, I'm not saying this is morally the right answer. I'm saying from a strict, because if you want,
what are we talking about?
Let me get this out. I said, I preface this with, I hate to say this. Shush.
But you're going to say it anyway.
But it's true.
I guess go ahead.
If you want,
didn't even look over his shoulders before he says it.
Because I don't give a, because listen, shut the fuck up. Listen. What I'm saying is if you're trying to win elections, these are all politicians. I hate them. I'm an anarchist. I want the dissolution of the state. Okay. But if you're trying to win an election on the gun issue and you're trying to gain white suburban moms, then the best thing you can do is say it's not about, you have to distract from the assault rifles, because when you think assault rifle, that amorphous term that somehow magically means every long barrel gun, the images you get are Columbine and kids getting shot.
Yeah, kids,
and that's how you get moms. And what you have to do is you have to say that you have to talk about handguns, and you have to talk about gang violence, and you have to bring back rhetoric from like the 90s of like super predators. You know, the thing Biden ran on.
To win who? That's what I'm confused about. To win who?
Right. You can't be overtly racist. You have to do the I hypocrite strategy on Twitter, right? Which is you have to be like thoughts ? With a meme that brings out all the racists, but you don't actually say any of the racist shit.
Of like 30 black people raiding a Jamba Juice or some shit.
Noticing.
Behold the field in which I tend to my racist.
Right. So like if you actually want to stoke fear and division and subtract from this concept, then the best way to do it is just to talk about gang violence and handguns, and then you can back that up with like plausible deniability to be like, look, 97% of murders that are gun murders are committed by individuals that are using illegally purchased handguns, and you can actually use the actual arguments there.
However, I feel like if you were trying to do, because you're talking about trying to appeal to demographics outside of like Democrats and white suburban moms or whatever. I think if you're saying that white suburban moms are the people who decide elections, hold on, you talk a lot. I want an opportunity to talk as well. Okay. So if you're saying that white, all right, white suburban moms decide elections, then mass shootings at schools are enough, especially for an assault weapons ban, because they're scary. They don't know about guns. They don't know that a pistol could do the same amount of damage. They don't know about soft targets. They don't know about security. And so if you're going for that as a Democrat, then you're good to go. As far as going after other demographics in order to support gun control, I don't agree that you're going to get any of these people, because as soon as you go to the right, you're going to have two kinds of people who are, I want to face a point, and then you can respond to it.
You're fundamentally misunderstanding what I'm saying.
I don't know what his counterpoint is saying yet. Hold on.
Let me misunderstand it.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know where counterpoints is going to go until he gets there. So please, counterpoints, continue. And then if you want to correct him, you may.
Yeah, this is just basic logic, but it's okay. It's fine. You're
it's okay.
In there. I'll let you finish.
Despite talking for a long time, you didn't articulate the target that you were going afterwards. So anyways, so the point is that when it comes to people who are outside of the white women demographic, people who tend to be right and pro-gun, I would say that when it comes to authoritarian right-wing people, they wouldn't be blaming the guns. They would be blaming black people. And when it comes to libertarians, they would say, that's a fucking skill issue. Black people just need to pull up their fucking bootstraps. So I don't think you're winning anybody over to your side. If you want to articulate who you're targeting, that's fine.
Right. No, what I'm saying is if you're trying to combat the Democrats, right, and you're trying to muddy the water, and you're trying to stop gun control, right, you need to focus on the handguns, and you need to sprinkle in a little bit of racism.
But Democrats would just say, but black people, or not black people, Democrats would just say that we need to take guns away. Well, hold on. I'll get racist, but I promise it'll be good.
Is, right?
So anyways, Democrats A lot
I
of
said
Democrats
best.
would
It's
say,
always racist.
I don't give a shit about the Second Amendment. Look at New York, look at California, look at their concealed carry laws, look at all that kind of stuff. And they would say, let's take away guns from the blacks anyways, that, we need to save them from themselves. That's what they would say.
God.
Maybe.
By the way,
I don't know if I buy it, but maybe.
Monster Ray said it best. Gun control is racist. But go on, whoever is going to talk next.
Well,
Yeah, I love Monstrey on guns. I
We
hate
gotta-
him on most other things. But
okay.
Same,
So we have run the gamut. I
Diverged.
think on the Walz topic.
We have strayed
I
so
think, yes,
far
we
from
have strayed
God's
from
light.
the light of God. Exactly. And I think that we are at a point where I want to get some closing statements. Let you people, good people, shout yourselves out. We have a couple callers if they want to call in. I don't know if you guys want to stay for call-ins. You can. If you'd
Absolutely.
like.
You can stay.
Yeah.
I
So
can stay
if-
for a little bit.
yeah, if you guys want to call in, if you've been watching this and you've been thinking to yourselves, these guys don't know what they're talking about. I'm a veteran that's a real veteran or whatever, and I want to come in and tell them what for. Or if you're
Boo.
sitting there and you're a civvy and you're like, I hate all the veterans and I want to tell them what for, you can
1
come
second.
in. You can call in, right? We had a caller in
Who's
who's
this monkey? Who's this black guy? Two different people.
Jesus!
Damn.
What?
Look.
Uh,
We can't have any monkey
That's the
talk on
moment
Wix.
right there.
He
Yo,
accepted it
like
the
I
other day.
tried to give my sting and you just like throw a bomb in there and now I'm flashbanged. Okay, it's just I'm like, okay, what?
Friendly fire.
Well,
Friendly fire.
I had a interview a couple days ago with a white nationalist who had a monkey in the background, right? And
Jesus,
it was
really?
crazy. It was
Is
like,
that
Not the way
Is
you
it
think it was,
socially-
but
it was insane, and
it
everyone's mad
racially-
that I didn't tell him that I was going to like kill his family. Right? They want me to push back by telling me I would go and
As-
find his
That's
mom and his kids and his-
counterproductive.
and cut their
As a
throats
racially
and, things.
and
so they're like,
socially aware
you didn't push back hard
liberal-
enough, even though I push back on every single fucking point. Yeah, it's a sore point because they're fucking liars and I hate them, and I push back on him harder than they've ever pushed back on Hamas or anything like that. But that's beside the point. I want to get, if you want to call in, is what I'm saying, you can, and you can challenge any statement that's been made, anything. I'll give the Discord links in chat. You can click on those links. You can jump backstage, and we'll pull you in when it's time. But first, gentlemen, we're going to give outros to these fine people, very fine people on both sides, okay? And you're going to like the stream, and you're subscribed to the channel. That's what you're going to do. We're going to start with Audacity, and then we will end with
Cool.
Quinn. Audacity?
Yeah, let me
Give
just
us your
let me
thoughts.
just pick my speech setting here. I got normal, fast, plaid, Steven Bonnell. What's that mode? I don't want to use that. Anyway, this has been a
it's
really great
also known as
conversation. This has been a really great conversation. Like, this has been like I've been really working on my empathy and building it and trying to really like make a connection to the Democrat side of things. Even though I am a Trump voter, I will be voting for Trump in the election. You know, I'm not scared to fucking admit it because I just have that I have that dog in me, dude. But either way, you know, this has been great. Fabian has been awesome this entire conversation. I really thought he was going to be a little more combative, but he was terrific. Connor, it's genuinely great to meet you, you know, to be able to talk to you like this. Quinn, I promise I'm going to get around to reading your stuff, but you know, I'm actually really happy that you and I kind of had a back and forth and exchange during this time that was really genuine and awesome. And Sparky, your room looks cool. But either way, no, Sparky, you've been great too. Your down home wisdom is really appreciated, and I just want to end this by saying that if this was if we were all in the same branch and this was a work party, it'd be the best fucking work party ever. All right, Wick is the fucking disenfranchised E6 who's lost control of the situation. Connor and Fabian are the fucking overstimulated, caffeinated, smoking E5s that are just going off the entire time. Quinn and I are the E4s that are just like stunned. And fucking Sparky's the goddamn chief warrant officer that comes in every once in a while to drop some down home country wisdom on us and then fucking leave and never be seen until ending formation for the day. This fucking ruled. I'm so happy I got invited on here. Thank you, Wick, and thanks everybody for being here.
No problem. Links to all these individuals will be in the YouTube description. You can click on those links. You can subscribe to their stuff. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you. And if you guys want to thank me with money, you absolutely may. Fabian Liberty, Scott, go ahead. Thoughts?
Yeah, so you can check me out, Fabian Liberty, everywhere. I'm in a little small hiatus, mostly because I'm just like in the process of moving and stuff. So I'll follow me, join the Discord or fuck with me on Twitter, I guess. Yeah, I mean, in summation, all politicians are dirty, lying pieces of shit, and Walz is no different. He's a dirty, lying piece of shit. If you know me at all, then you know I'm a right-wing libertarian anarchist, whatever term you want to use. So obviously I was going to have that position even if we didn't have any dirt on him, because that's just kind of how those positions exist. It is nice to see it, and and I do like that we can kind of elucidate how that how he's no different than any of the others. Yeah, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm not a Kamala person. I hate the left probably more than I hate the right. But that's only because the right are, progressives doing the speed limit. They're all socialists as far as I'm concerned. And there was a comment made in, earlier when I said, communism and socialism is the same thing. And it was Edokwin, I believe. You were like, no, we didn't get into it. All I want to say is if you believe that that is untrue, that there's a substantive difference between communism and socialism, just read Engels' Socialism, Scientific and Utopic, and understand that socialism is the process of the dialectical materialism or historical materialism as it goes through, and you will understand that socialism is just communist praxis. And so, all your favorite Republicans and all your favorite Democrats are just a bunch of dumb commie fucks, and I want to take them all down.
You can find him on his YouTube channel and his other links, which I put in the YouTube description. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Aircraft Sparky, go ahead.
Connor, fuck you, but I love you. I have to do that obligatory. It's just part of our little thing.
Mutual.
But look, here's the deal. Tim Walz is a scumbag piece of shit. Colloquially, you could say yes, he committed stolen valor. That's what us bro vets are going to tell you, just so you will hate him a little bit more, because fuck him. But legally, he didn't. Okay, he plays a little loose with the valor portion. I don't really care. What bothers me is his actual actions as governor. He showed what an authoritarian piece of shit he is. The way he treated his own citizens, the way he disregarded his citizens during the mostly peaceful but fiery riots in 2020. He drug his feet when he shouldn't have, and he hammered down way too damn hard when he shouldn't have. You look at his record. If you like it, that says more about you than it does him, and that makes you a piece of shit. But I mean, I know I'm not trying to ingratiate myself to anyone. That's just who I am. You can find me at my links or whatever. God bless you all. And actually really nice to meet the two new people who I've never dealt with before. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, nice to meet you. My bad.
Yeah, we'll talk to thank you for coming. Really appreciate
I'm a piece of
you.
shit.
I knew you're happy to meet me.
I love you, Fabian. I'm just too dumb to interact.
Let's
with
get
you
to these counter. Let's get through them. Let's get through them. Then we can get to the callers. Counterpoints. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Connor. I run a Warhammer channel that is middlingly successful, but I like to think that I make really good content. So if you're into that, type in Counterpoints 40K into your search bar. You'll be able to find me there. Down in the description, you'll find Counterfire, where I normally post debates and conversations such as this. So if you're into the political side, go ahead and check that out. Also, I have an essay channel that is neglected, but I am working on stuff in the background, linked in the description as well. When it comes to the topic, yeah, Walz did something that is messed up. It just is. We all know people who dodged deployments. We all know people who exaggerated their credentials. We all know people who use their military service in order to get a 10% discount into Applebee's and all that kind of bullshit, which is not stolen valor, by the way. That's totally fine. I'm just saying, like, when you tell the waitress, like, yeah, I was in Fallujah, but you were really like a motor T guy who, stayed in, Virginia your entire career, that's the kind of cringe that we try to avoid as veterans. So Walz committed cringe. It's not the worst. It will be water off a duck's ass. He will do fine in the election, and him and JD Vance will have a dick measuring contest about this, and it'll blow over. So those are my thoughts. Come check me out if you want to.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for coming. Convicted of cringe. Well, I like that saying, and I'm going to use it. Thank you again, and check them out if you want. Last but certainly not least, Edokwin. Go ahead.
Thank you. Edokwin, Edokwin, also known as QuinnQ. This has been a good panel. I will agree with Audacity. I will also just say, like, on the communism versus socialism points, Communism is the after stage. Socialism is the first stage. And the thing I will always say, and this is no offense to you, Fabian, you don't know me very well. Assume I've read everybody. I've read Hess, I've read Engels, and I've read Marx. Assume I've read everybody. I hate when, no offense to you, but I hate when everybody's like, you need to read more, I'll educate you. No, you won't. I've read it already. I understand the theory. It's fine. Moving on. But like, you can find me online. Edokwin is my handle everywhere. I even got it on TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but I was able to wrangle it from some teenage girl in Africa. And you can find me primarily on Twitter. I also have a Substack called the Edokwin Editorial. I write like twice a month, but it's reasonably good stuff. And yeah, hit me up anytime.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your perspective. Gang, if you've enjoyed this content, if you've liked what we do, we do this kind of thing all the time on my channel. We have discussions all the time. This is the last one for this week, but next week we got some great bangers coming up. As soon as I schedule them and get some guests. But it will be great. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell so you're notified every time I go live. Yeah, and you get to catch all these wonderful people. And sometimes I do call-ins where you can call in, things like that. But yeah, that's the show. If you want to call in, we're going to be doing call-ins for about 30 minutes or until I get bored. So what we're going to do is you, my dears, are going to click the Discord link, which I'm going to provide in chat, and I provided both in Twitch and in YouTube chat. And click that link. You're going to accept the rules, and you're going to jump backstage, and we're going to pull you in. And you can ask questions to the panel, talk to us about whatever you like. Yeah. So if you have big thoughts and you don't think we've covered something enough, or you think we've covered something wrong, now's your time. Let's bring in our first guest.
I do need to run, but parasocial love to you. And if somebody needs to insult me, feel free to give them my Discord. I take insults via direct message.
Will do. Okay, Artemis Fowl, what do you got?
Not a whole lot. I think that the Waltz thing is a little bit more impactful than people are letting on. All of Waltz's chain of command, both his commanding officer and the NCO who replaced him, both declared that he was a shitbag and did nothing for his unit while he was a sergeant major, an acting sergeant major. He wasn't an actual one. He actually retired as an E8, not an E9, even though he keeps claiming that he is a sergeant major or retired as one. He did know about his deployment coming up before he got out of the army, because it is his job for his he was just an acting sergeant major, so he's really fucking high up there. They would have known about their rotation over a year out from when it was coming, because it's their job to run the logistics and get everybody prepared for that. So they would have known that was coming. I don't know why people pretend that, oh, he got out 10 months before, as if that meant anything.
Yeah.
I would say that the fact that his chain of command that was above and below him both say that he abandoned his men can be used as an easy attack against him, for like equating it to him abandoning the people of Minnesota for 3 days for the rioting. And that he is more heavy-handed with people trying to live on their own property and shooting them with paintballs than he is the rioters burning down his cities. So there's a lot of areas to attack him.
I wonder if this guy likes Waltz or not. I can't tell. I wonder if he's a Waltz supporter. I don't know.
I still give him 60% probability that he's voting.
I don't care. I'm just looking at the impacts of what this is going to do to his chances. The issue being is that when you're talking about poll numbers currently, Harris doesn't have the lead people think she does. She's still behind about roughly 2 percentage points on the general election. It doesn't matter. Morning Consult keeps trying to fucking tilt the numbers by putting out a +10 fucking poll number every week just to try to pad those numbers.
Yeah.
She's still behind in a lot of the swing states. And having this issue is not going to benefit her. It's only the fact that they've had to address it multiple times now, and it's not going away. They understand that it's a vulnerability to them. And people trying to play it down as if it doesn't matter, or just not looking at what the Harris campaign is trying to do to mitigate it.
Let me ask my audience, do we have any Waltz simps in chat? Because I think that's what we need. We need a Waltz simp. I'm not a Waltz simp, okay? I he wasn't my
think anybody
choice.
is.
Right?
Well, I can kind of address some of his points
Please, go
from
ahead.
the empathetic side of like a moderate or center right, center left guy. It's. I mean, the one thing I want to address is that you said it's more impactful than people think, but it's conditionally impactful because it requires a veteran or someone who understands the military to be able to explain why. And you also have the possibility of the other side existing where a veteran or someone explains why it's not a big deal. So the impactful point is just kind of neutral.
So my
on
question
So
that.
would
hold on,
be
just real quick.
okay.
Just to piggyback off that, so you can ask us both these questions, right? I will play a wall simp on TV. Okay, I will steel man the position.
Play.
So, yes,
You'll steal that man.
I will steel man the position, just so everyone is clear what's going on here. So if anyone tries
We'll
to
steal
clip
some
me,
simp valor.
exactly.
Yeah.
Simp stolen valor. Okay, so here's the deal, right? If anyone had a problem with his service record, you know what they could have done? They could have brought it up in the paperwork. They could have tried to, reprimand him, given him all these things. If they thought he was a shitbag, there were
No, they
avenues
couldn't.
that they could have taken that
No,
were.
they
I'll go against you.
So I got to push back on
no,
this. So
you gotta let
you
me
cannot
finish.
write paperwork. You can't write paperwork for a senior enlisted, even as a general. If you are the regiment freaking commander, you can't write it. You have to go to National Guard HQ in DC, and they have to write it. So there's some logistics associated with that.
Not only that, they did reprimand him down to Master Sergeant 2 months after
that
he got
wasn't that wasn't a
That's not a-
reprimand.
yeah,
that
that
was
wasn't a
correction of
reprimand.
paperwork.
Oh,
That's all that
Hold
was.
on, that wasn't a reprimand.
hold on.
That's
He
not
was
a
given
reprimand.
he was given a
Yeah.
provisional title. Okay,
Yeah,
he
and they
was
took it back.
provisionally promoted,
No.
but he didn't fulfill the requirements, and so
Yeah.
he got demoted. That wasn't
No.
a reprimand, and to frame it as a
correct
reprimand is
Artemis,
just not
Artemis,
true.
a reprimand is something that follows immediately after UCMJ or the Naval
Okay,
Judicial.
so hold on. So
Article
I want to point out
Who's
that
gonna Article
using- hold on,
15
stop,
a fucking
stop, hold on.
command sergeant major that's like getting
I would.
even I mean
Yeah,
it's
nobody,
so silly.
No, you
nobody would. Nobody fucking would.
I would.
Be,
I'll take
No
that
one
challenge.
will.
I'll be up that ass.
I understand.
I'm gonna make these walls sweat, son.
Take the
Hold on,
Pepsi
hold on.
challenge.
Nobody would actually do that because you have a long-standing issue with the chain of command at that rank. It's more
That's a fair
political than
point,
anything
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So I know that
Yeah,
I know a lot of
politics, you're right. I overlooked
E4s.
the military politics.
They
You're
would
right.
just let him leave.
Yeah. E4 Sham Shields would just. It's a lot faster just to let him leave. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm talking about. But I gave you the point that yes, I overlooked the army politics of it all. But in reality, due to the way the process played out, it's still just not a reprimand. Like there was.
I'm using a colloquial
point.
thing. They
Okay.
looked at it and they
Using the
slapped him
Using the
down.
wrong terminology. We don't care. It's
No, they
fine.
didn't look at it.
Okay.
It was an automatic thing. There was no.
But it's not a
thought to
punishment. You shouldn't
improv.
call it. You shouldn't refer to it as something that acts on punishment of.
He's using the wrong
And that's what
terminology.
reprimand means.
Hold on. Okay. So here's the issue, right? It is an automatic thing, but it is a punishment for not fulfilling the requirements
Not a
of.
punishment.
And it's not a punishment, though.
Punishment,
It's
yeah.
just statistical
punishment.
order
Yeah.
of the way
It's
the
just,
military
it just
works.
means
Okay.
so
yeah,
hold on, hold on.
It's
So
irrelevant
hold on.
to the conversation.
Hold on.
I'm,
so
So-
hold on.
I know.
You
Nothing is
you,
really
I would
you,
say
you made the
because
claim.
We stayed like
you-
the first hour of our conversation. There. I don't think we
you-
brought anything new to the table
yeah.
except like the COVID
you,
stuff. But
yeah, you made the statement that you think it's more powerful than it is, and I might be inclined to believe you. I don't know. I think what is far more likely is the real condition that is going to make this either a big issue or not is the vice presidential debate, because it's going to come up. And if Vance is really good at and has like some good quips or a good soundbite, then it will fucking destroy him. And if
Yeah.
Vance can't have a good
It'll land
soundbite,
him.
or he comes off kind of goofy sounding and it just doesn't land,
It'll be
then
petty.
this will be a nothing burger.
I
in
think
fact, it might even come down. I think how Vance handles this when it inevitably comes up in the VP debate will actually be the prime
Is it
determination
ABC?
of whether or not it's effective.
Is it ABC?
I don't
or
know
who?
who's hosting that debate.
Because that's the
Um,
issue is that they like ABC is obviously going to try to mitigate that stuff.
It doesn't
Oh.
matter. Vance will still bully it in.
Quick. We all know that the media people do this shit. They Trump has
I
an
know
issue with
that's like
almost
an
every
article
journalist.
of faith with you guys.
No,
that
no, no.
they're gonna
Trump has an
be,
actively
like,
aggressive nature with every fucking media outlet. That's
Look,
just,
there's a
they
reason
hate
why
him.
Stephanopoulos is always
He's suing
pulled to give
Stephanopoulos.
We need Connor back.
He
in
sues
here.
everyone. He sued Bill Maher for calling him an
Yeah,
orangutan.
Stephanopoulos
He's super
is-
happy. The fact that
Hold
Trump
on,
is
hold
suing
on.
you as evidence for anything is just fucking
hold on,
weird.
hold on.
right?
That suit survived slap. It's moving forward because Stephanopoulos had a chance to.
Oh,
deny
shit,
any
really?
bias.
It went.
Yeah.
It went past slap. Sorry, it was
Yes.
mid-toke.
Yes, it did, and that's why he even brought it up now that he couldn't do the ABC thing.
Don't deny
is
bias.
Oh,
because,
shit.
yeah,
My bad.
So- but
I'm
the,
saying it's a little
so-
overcooked to say that Vance can't get his way in a debate, or not to get his way.
I'm not
he
saying
can't
that.
get a point out in a debate. Okay,
I'm not
what
saying
do you
that.
say?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they're going to look out for that. stuff like
Artemis.
that.
Artemis, I agree with you that obviously the media is going to be confrontational to anyone that represents the presumed right wing.
Correct.
I think Vance is a honestly, if you read Hillbilly Elegy and you read his papers against libertarian economic policy, I think he's a right wing socialist intellectual who's pretending to be a populist.
Okay, so it's normal.
but- Right, but I don't think
Actually not, but
it's
okay.
whether or not the media carries water for Kamala and for Walz, which they obviously will, is still irrelevant to whether or not he's going to have a good zinger. If he has a good zinger, a good soundbite, this will be a
Yeah,
powerful
and that's
thing
all in Vance's
because
corner.
it will spread.
Vance can bring
Right,
if it
and
doesn't
if he
come
doesn't
up, Vance
get
can
one-
bring it up. Yeah.
Oh, here's a
I
question.
mean, it can be more difficult to do when they're carrying water, but if they try and step on him, it might even work in his favor. It just kind of all depends on how it
Possibly.
plays out.
They overplayed their hand in the last debate, so I can understand that. The big thing I was looking more at is that how he would perform is how he's been doing with the antagonistic nature of the questions he's been getting on the campaign trail, which he
Yeah.
has responded pretty well to, all things considered.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't heard any couch fucking memes going on in the questions, but
Yeah,
we may
the
see
other
that.
The other problem is the media. There is something happening with TikTok. Obviously, there's some algorithmic manipulation.
Yeah,
but
I
that's
know where
true
you're
on
going. I
that's
know where you're
true
going.
that's true in all of all social media, right? That like search engine optimization and their political biases,
Rumble.
in all of these places, right? Well, Rumble has issues too. Rumble is chaotic, but Rumble doesn't have the
Vocals.
market share for them to have a. Rumble doesn't have enough market share to have a significant impact on the election, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of swaying normies, right? Because normies just aren't on Rumble.
Would buying
But what I'm
ads to
seeing-
change the titles of articles to be more positive in your favor?
No, I
sway
brought
the normies?
dude. Did you? Armin,
Yeah, he was
I
talking
brought
about that.
up.
That was
I
the
brought
Google
that up.
manipulation. yeah.
I'm just pointing out the Wick
Right.
because
But
Wick thought that this
listen.
wasn't impactful.
I'm
Hold
making
on,
a
what?
point, right? So there was a very famous moment from the Pence Kamala Harris debate where Kamala lost the debate handedly, right? And that famous moment where she was utterly defeated
Lost the debate.
was when, without a doubt, everyone, even CNN, all of them, they all admitted on the night that the debate occurred that Pence won handedly.
She's
all
not
of the
stiff
all
enough
of
to
the
win a
polls at the
debate
time.
against Pence, man.
So-
She's too static.
So no, there was a definitive moment that
Boy.
everyone that at the
Haven't
time
checked for
everyone
this, but
agreed
Go ahead. Go
was
off, King.
okay. Oh, shush. I know I'm verbose, but it takes longer when you constantly interrupt me. So the moment that she lost the debate was when she when Pence and her were given a question, and then she tried to run from the question, and then he interrupts her and says, well, I'd just like her to answer the question, and pointed out that she was running from the question and that she didn't have an answer, and she was giving a typical political, political bullshit answer. And she goes, excuse me, I'm speaking. And everyone was like, right? And that failure that she had to where she proved that she was a lying sack of shit that dodges questions and had like this weird moment has been completely changed into one of her greatest campaign successes with Gen Z. And it's like in all these TikTok dance videos and all this weird shit where they're like, I'm speaking, and there are t-shirts and merchandise. And so there's something really strange about the tribalistic policies and the online manipulation and social atmosphere that I don't know we can quite yet quantify, because I think Walz could get ruined in the debate, and it could still turn into a great success because of just how manipulated and just and perception and algorithms and the social media power that the Kamala campaign has, especially on TikTok.
It's not going to be what's said. It's going to be what's remembered. It's going to be what's remembered. It's what's going to be people.
And when there are dance videos of Walz saying something stupid, but somehow it's spun as a one, he could fail the debate and it could still work in his favor. And that's something I don't know we've ever seen.
Younger people go out to vote, which statistically they don't.
One of my problems
Gen
with
Z's
modern...
more politically engaged than millennials.
One of my problems with modern politics, current politics, today's kind of way of doing things is even more so than back in like 2000 and 2004 even, we are leaning on vibes in a way that I think is just growing.
Cringe.
From election year to election year, from cycle to cycle to cycle. And that represents a problem to me. I understand that a strictly policy campaign probably couldn't win today. If that's all you had is just really great policy.
That was Jeb Bush.
You probably just can't
That was
win.
Jeb Bush. That was Jeb Bush in 2015 primaries, right? 2015 primaries, before Trump got his full swing. That was Jeb Bush on the Republican side, at least, right?
And you saw how he did, right?
Because the issue is that the
can't win, but
there's more that
the
machine was like needing to be punched in the face, and that's what the electorate thought. So that's why that didn't work.
A lot of them
Republican
still
wanted
think that
to
way.
burn everything down. So, okay, just to be clear,
please.
and I understand everybody lives in bubbles, but just to be clear, 59% from, let me see here, I got 538, 59% from CNN, 59% from Statista. I can show you all this in the comments if you want. Polling shows that more voters, regardless of who they support in the election, who they were going to support in the election, thought that Kamala Harris won the VP debate. So I understand we all live in bubbles, we all have our perceptions. I was not in the tank for either person, but I've seen polling on this time and again that's shown that the actual empirics seem to lean toward Harris winning in a lot of people's minds.
When those polls were taken?
Fox World,
when were those polls taken? Right
was
after the debate? I'm just curious out of the timeline.
October 2020.
Okay, so basically right after the debate. Gotcha. Okay, carry on.
I'm not. If I'm wrong on that, I'm wrong. I remember it. If I am incorrect and I had some weird bubble thing, I'm fine with that. I mean,
you can disagree with the polls. You can disagree with the opinions. I'm just saying.
To be clear,
I remember the fly winning.
Like I have no problem.
the fly.
I have no problem admitting if I'm, if I'm wrong in that regard. I don't remember it that way. I might want to look at it again, but yeah, I mean, the data is the data. Obviously, polling issues are always a problem. It's more art than science, but still, I don't think I'm incorrect in remembering at the time, and maybe I am. Maybe you had a different group of people you were listening to. That was a definitive win, at least that moment where she came off awkward and where she didn't answer the question and she was made fun of. And if you just watch that, you can watch it now and you can know that that's a loss for her. Like you can see her definitively. It's become something new, and it's become.
I'll explain
good.
I'll explain it. I'll explain why. So it plays badly then, especially in the context of her failing out in the primaries, the Democrat primaries. Let me make it really clear in this context, right? He says to some like jackass pro-Palestinian protesters at one of her rallies, hey, if you want to keep going on, if you want Trump to win, then say all that nonsense. Otherwise, I'm speaking. That's the context of it in 2024, which is a bit different context. We all hate the pro-Palestinian protesters.
I think the memes started
before the Palestinian people. Not the Palestinian people, the pro-Palestinian protesters, because they're cringe, and a lot of them are anti-Semitic. So we hate those people, and especially they're hated in normally Democrat circles. So her saying basically "fuck you, shut up, I'm talking" to those people plays differently than it does. Her talking.
We
to
scalped.
Hold on.
We scalped 2 out of 3 of them. We got Bowman. We got Bush. We missed Omar. Unfortunately. unfortunately, but we'll get them next time. Okay,
I-
we're taking them out
I-
one by
I
one.
I agree.
Hold on.
That can't
Yes.
that what you just said can't be true in entirety. It
I
can
never
be true.
lie. What are you talking about?
No, I'm not saying people lie all the time.
I would defend Quinn
accidentally
on his
because
point at the end.
that's just happened. But no,
Fine,
I
fine,
agree.
fine.
I agree
will
that you
be-
can say that it
Yeah,
is.
go ahead.
Hold
You can
on.
say that lended to the meme and increased its popularity. I mean, I'm not even on fucking TikTok, so what do I know? But the memes of the I'm
You're not
speaking
Catboy 69.
and the T-shirts were yeah, right were popular before that moment happened with the Palestinian protesters.
So
So
for
there were dance videos of the I'm speaking. There was like,
But
the
that's all
she's a brat
AstroTurf.
reference
That's
to
the whole
brat shit.
brat thing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all
yeah.
that is. It's
Yeah,
AstroTurf.
that's
All right, hold on.
That's fine.
So to get with the numbers that Quinn put out, the issue being is that during that time there was a referendum on Trump as a president in his administration, and it doesn't really matter whether or not Kamala actually won the debate or not. People were going to side with Kamala because they hated Trump
No.
that much,
no,
and they
no,
wanted
no,
something
because
more normal. That's how
No,
a lot
because
of
the
these
poll-
I
polls
literally
work.
pulled
no, you're no
lots of
to
debates
defend
right
Quinn.
after the debate.
No,
It
to
doesn't-
defend
it doesn't
Quinn.
matter.
The polls he's referencing because I'm right, like because I had to look it up because I was. One of the major ones is change in popularity, right? So even if
that's-
there's a referendum on Trump, right? Like, I mean, you can say that like maybe the media is gaslighting you into believing that Kamala won when she didn't, which is certainly true. Many people are very easily led by the nose into changing their opinions in
gas
an
it up.
instant, especially Democrats these days.
Called manufactured consent.
That's a whole
You're
thing.
gonna
Oh,
you're gonna
oh,
you're gonna
no,
cite
we are
fucking
not
Chomsky
going to
now?
go down this
Yeah,
rabbit
go that
hole.
way. I'm gonna throw that out there because I know it triggers
No,
you.
we're
ahead,
not
Fabian,
going
finish
to.
up.
I want to
Fabian,
make
finish
sure
up.
that
Fabian, finish
Audacity
up.
gets finish up, and then I want to make sure Audacity gets some responses. I want to make sure he gets in. Go ahead. Audacity.
If you're good, Fabian, then I guess Audacity can go next.
Yeah, Audacity. Is this not on? Is this working?
What?
What's-
Waiting for Fabian, right?
Yeah.
No, we're waiting for
No.
you.
He's good.
No,
He said he's good. You had some stuff to say
Fine.
at the end.
No, I want to defend Quinn on his point that it is differently impactful to that side of the aisle when the person who's supposed to be representing that side of the aisle kind of comes out and is like, please stop shouting. It really like it definitely hits different for them because this is supposed to be the person you're relying on to stopping your Palestinian war, and of course it hits different when she's so very dismissive of it. So I wanted to defend that point, and then I wanted to touch on Artemis's point of Kamala's impact on things, and I got to be honest with you with the numbers with the model I've been trying to build. She's a little bit above because she's fresh blood, but overall she's pretty comparative to Trump on the impact of like her capability to gain
Hold on.
favor for addressing issues.
Just real quick, does anyone not agree that Kamala Harris has a slight lead overall right now? I mean, like most
No,
models
I
that I've
don't
Yeah,
seen,
good call out.
almost every single model I've
So-
seen shows her ahead. We could think
Yeah, I
that
don't
that's
think it's
overblown,
very- I
that's
wanna-
false or whatever. It's
No,
astroturf or whatever.
yeah, I don't. But Wick, sadly, that could be equated to like polls and stuff. I'm talking about I built a model myself to gauge.
No,
I-
he Nate
I
Silvered
can't-
this shit, Wick.
I
He
can't
Nate
speak
Silvered
for
it.
your. I can't speak for your model, buddy. I don't
I
know.
know,
your
I know,
model.
but
How many keys
I'm
does it have?
speaking. I will openly admit that I am speaking just from my experience and from the work I've done, and I'm willing to share it. And I'm pretty sure I shared the current stage on my Twitter. What it is,
Pulled
but
Nayela. He pulled Nayela. Look out.
but
Oh.
it's just she is slightly above, but equal in impact, and it's really going to come down to debates and them being face to face and them actually starting to challenge one another the closer we get to November before we actually see where the impact actually lies between these candidates, because
So
she's a wild card right now.
So
Here-
I mean, I think first and foremost, politics, American politics, I think Trump shows from 2016 on that our ability to predict the future of elections and things of that nature has has diminished, right? I think
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I think election prediction and poll models and things of that nature were certainly far more accurate pre-Trump era, pre-populism. And there are a lot of reasons for that, right? Like there's social media that's harder and its influence and the virality of like certain memes or videos or concepts and how many people are actively participating, right? Like 2010, your grandma wasn't actively using Facebook all day, right? Like now she is, and she's not using it just to share pictures of the grandchildren. Like she's arguing politics with Gen X, and like all of us millennials are wondering what those conversations are like because we've been banned from Facebook 15 years ago when we said something slightly off color. You know, but I mean,
I have not been
joking
banned from any
aside,
platform.
when we look at polling data, it is in a lot of ways, it is more art than it is a science, right? You know, one of the things that I think was really fascinating about Jonathan Haidt was that he was able in the Obama-Romney election to be more accurate than pollsters by using his moral psychology framework in key counties than pollsters were themselves on self-reports about political opinions. He was more accurately able to predict the outcome of the election than pollsters. And so I think that says a lot about the difficulty of polling and the breakdown of data. So you will see there's so many polls right now that are run by Republican and Democrat marketing firms that are being put into aggregate polling, that I think people talking about aggregate polls or RCP or the Fox News poll or this poll or that poll, a lot of them are terrible.
Scott.
They're terrible.
Hold on. If I may, like, I understand that polls aren't perfect, and I have problems with polls as well. But what other metric are we going to use in a discussion about who is more ahead currently, who has the momentum, etc.?
You need
I think that is. Hold on. Let me finish. My God, let me finish. Okay. So I understand that it's imperfect data, right? But it is data that we can make some inferences on and assumptions on. We've seen how generally polls have done in 2018, 2020, 2022. We've seen how they're doing in special elections, how they've leaned in different ways, and we can make some inferences. And from what I'm seeing, at least currently, there's a very small, slight lead for Harris now.
I disagree.
That could change.
I'll explain.
That could change in like
I disagree and I explain.
Go ahead.
I'll disagree. I disagree and I'll explain. When you look at aggregate polling data, or you're just looking at different polls, what you see on Twitter, what you see online, and what you see reported in news articles is usually either a specific question from an exhaustive poll, or you see a general summary of the poll. And the problem is that's always going to favor Democrats. The reason that's always going to favor Democrats is because Democrats have an advantage in the popular vote.
It hasn't. It didn't in 2018.
It has.
No, polls underestimated Democratic performance in 2018. It underestimated Democratic performance in 2020. It underestimated Democratic performance.
I think his point is that it's going to make them look good, not that it's
Well,
going to help them understand reality.
So hear me out.
And I will just defend
what I'm saying.
And don't ever.
Well, I was going to explain. You can't look at statistics. What you have to do is you have to look at the statistics and then see what is the mechanism that statistic is helping to explain, right? So when you look at a poll and it says 51-49 or 50.5, 49.5 Kamala over Harris, you have to go, okay, did they take out likely voters? Because we know that Democrats are less likely to show up on election day in general, right? Did they account for the new variances in online mail? Right. You also have to look at the fact that the popular vote is it usually favors the Democrat. Why? Because there are states like California and New York, right, where there are a lot of people, and the Republicans in those states just check out. Whereas what we really want to look at is we want to look at swing states. The other thing you need to look at is there's usually an oversampling bias, and this isn't pollsters' fault. It's something they have to account for in Democrats versus Republicans. For whatever reason, Democrats are more likely to respond to surveys, and they're more likely to answer the phone call and be willing to sit down and take it. Anytime you look at any poll, if you look at the actual data as opposed and read like the pages of the PDF, right? What you'll see is they'll go, we had 60% Democrats and 40% Republicans, and then we accounted for that, right? And then so a lot of times what you'll see is The Democrat firms won't account for that. And then the Republican firms will over account for that. So there are a lot of issues. So there are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics. So what I would say is look at the polls now and compare them to the polls in 2018, in 2016, in 2020. And what you will see is that Hillary Clinton and Biden was 5 and 7 points ahead, not 1 point ahead.
No, we can't. Okay, so I get your point on that, but 2024 is 2024. And I think that, like, one of the mistakes we sometimes make
it is guesswork. It's educated guesswork.
Look. I'll give you this. Wick. Okay,
going into Sparky, the convention. Then Quinn, go ahead.
Going into the convention, Kamala Harris is going to have more momentum. How the convention goes will determine how much more momentum or less momentum she has. Yeah. If it turns into 1968 Chicago, she's already lost. So I'm hoping for a riot. Burn, baby, burn. Let's go. Yes. No, I want Chicago to burn.
Sparky, come on. Don't be a friggin' accelerationist, man. That's
let him finish.
But here's the deal. Don't ever.
And there went all of your goodwill from the debate. It all evaporated right there.
Exactly. But don't ever discount the Republicans' ability to fuck something up.
Yep.
Okay, especially Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump is either amazing on messaging or just god awful. There is no in between. There is no mediocre. I'll tell you, as someone who tends to vote more conservative, J.D. Vance is a disappointing selection for VP. By God, I didn't want him. Why? Because he's
socialist.
He's legitimately a fucking right-wing socialist.
He's Mike Pence without all the morality. That's really all he is.
I'm looking at
uninspired.
a picture right now that proves that.
He's a fresh face without all of the evilness that Mike Pence brings to the table.
And if he ever shaves his beard, his popularity will go down at easily 10 points.
Hold on. I'm going to defend Mike Pence. Mike Pence isn't evil.
Mike Pence supported the electroshock therapy.
Yeah, Mike Pence was definitely the uncle you had at Thanksgiving. Have you tried God? When it's like
J.D. Vance isn't evil either.
Pence came out and said he was in favor of conversion therapy.
But
are you in favor of that?
Moving on.
Okay, having positions that I fundamentally disagree with does not make you an evil person. What makes someone an evil person? Hold on. No, this is important. What makes person an evil? Their politics doesn't make you good. It doesn't make you evil. What makes you good or evil is how you behave. And I think that regardless of what else you think of him, how he behaved during January 6th is a mark in his favor. He performed well.
Okay,
that was a given.
It's not. It's not a given. It's never a given to do the right thing.
I was there, bro. It was. Everyone knew Mike Pence wasn't going to do anything to slow down or stop anything.
All right,
no one on the ground even believed that.
All right, let's go back to the.
We brought up January 6th. How long before someone brings up Hitler?
Hold on. I want to toss it to Quinn. Quinn had some things to say, and then we can get back to you, Artemis. And then we're gonna probably wrap it up because I'm running out of steam.
I got you.
31 minutes today, boys.
So I wanted to respond to Fabian's point about polling. I'll just sort of back up a little bit, as well as just offer context. Like, fun facts: two major firms, Brookings and 538, lost their chief founders and are now basically like shells of their former self and partisan hackery on either side.
Lost in the wind.
So that's posting your point. And also, if you want to have an interesting look at why social media sucks right now and why the algos make us angry and especially divisive and polarized, look at The Chaos Machine by Max Fisher. Great book, very useful. In general, I agree with a lot of what you said, Fabian. I think that
can you put that in the Discord for me? I actually do want to read it, but I'm ADHD as fuck and I'll forget.
I'll actually friend you and DM you at some point. Actually, I'll put it in the group chat. But
appreciate it.
But anyway, so my point being, I think that people just need to have some reasoned skepticism with a lot of this stuff and understand that in general, people will sell a narrative rather than the truth. This is the thing I talk about a lot on my timeline on Twitter. Like, you have to be able to understand when you're being sold a narrative versus the truth and have some reasoned skepticism in regard to whatever you see or read.
Yeah, but why do they do that? Hold on. Quinn, no, I agree with you, but why do they do that?
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Because it works.
We have to clarify who they is. But
people who people who use the technique of selling a narrative, right, a story, instead
Mhm.
of just using facts and things like that. It's because it works. This is how people are
Yes.
swayed. It's persuasive in a way
Yes.
that simple facts aren't. So when we have this narrative, right, when we have this story that of Kamala Harris, and we talked about this earlier in the show, right? One of the reasons she's been vague on policy, one of the reasons she hasn't come out strongly one way or another on a whole host of issues and hasn't really elaborated on them, is because it's better to be vague. It's better to have the story of, I'm going to change things, I'm going to be better, but not have to actually tell people how, because it works better and it gets better. And so we have these
I
data
disagree,
points.
but
I
If you
think
don't
in the
define
short term it
yourself,
does.
your opponent will.
That's
So I think
Oh,
there
I
are
disagree.
there are two
Sometimes-
confounding.
yes,
I would
but
say-
a lot of times, like Trump isn't. It's not working. Trump isn't
I would say
defining
there
it
are
you run
well.
a
two
principle.
confounding
I think you run
variables.
Hold on,
Yeah.
really quick. I think you run a principle
Yeah, go.
policy-based campaign. I just think that ultimately you have to also have major party support to do that first. I think you can do it, but you have to have major party support to do that first, and you have to win a primary. And winning a primary, not on vibes, is hard. That part I will grant you. Winning a primary, not on vibes, is hard. You need to fix the primaries in some regards to fix that, but you can win
They were
Well,
fixed.
she didn't go through
with
primaries.
a policy-based
Well, they were
campaign. And by
fixed.
the way, I didn't say it's in the main thing. Okay, I will just also offer this. I'm a Chase surrogate. No, since Audacity mentioned who he's voting for, I'm voting for Chase. I'm a volunteer / voter for Chase. So fuck this big two. Just putting it out there. Okay.
I'm a libertarian and I hate.
I
Chase
support you,
Oliver.
man.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
Motherfucker.
voting for
Okay.
any
Probably
of
for
them.
Crane's
Four.
cultural.
Isn't
cultural
Chase the
reasons, no offense.
libertarian guy that was
Yeah,
in
he's a
favor-
libertarian
Yes.
candidate.
This
He's
is
the
Chase
guy.
Oliver.
He's in favor of
He's
the
the
government
best
telling
candidate.
the
not.
businesses to fucking encroach
not.
on your rights. That's what he
not.
said on the
So-
stage.
No, he is
No.
in favor of free association, including businesses having rules that they are
So-
allowed to enforce with no government oversight.
Oh my God,
because
really?
that is a libertarian
No,
position.
no. So as someone that has been deeply involved in libertarian party, right? As the ANCAP here, right? Well,
My
I
desire
wasn't this for a
to continue this conversation is diminishing by the second, but
Yeah.
finish your point.
Part
I would
two.
just say, I would just say,
Two.
or, DM me about it later. I can explain. That's not his position.
Yeah, Chase is.
But so back onto
yeah.
back onto
Chase
what you
is
were
the
saying
smartest
about
candidate.
why is
Anyway.
Polling. Conversations about polling.
This
Well,
election. This
anyways.
election.
Yeah, Wick, announce part 2. Announce the sequel right now.
So
Let them
So-
fight.
Have a Chase
in
panel. I'll be
regards-
there.
in
I'll
regards-
be your strongest soldier for Chase.
okay. So
I'll
wait,
DM you about that.
in
We can have
regards
a
to your
chase
actual-
off. But anyway,
Nice.
all right. In regards to your actual question, right? Why is it that this narrative selling is the position of so many in politics currently? I would say two things. Number one, advances in psychology and in science and in sociology do actually exist. Like we do learn things about psychology and sociology over time. And the people that get paid big money to try and win elections pay attention to that. And it has been, I don't want to say it's been proven because it certainly hasn't, right? It's a soft science. But over the last 20 years, the understanding that energeia and pathos are far, far, far stronger than ethos and logos in the Plato's tripartite of rhetoric, right? Is something that we have learned more and more about. And so, we've these people that get paid the big bucks know that the story and the narrative is 90% of what is important. And that because once you get people involved in the story, especially energeia, like I said, where you can get people to feel like they're a part of your
Bigger.
story,
I'm with
right?
her.
Then you can sprinkle in a little bit of logos and
change.
pathos, right? You can sprinkle in a little bit of
that
The
supports
second thing that I would say-
the other stuff. It doesn't cause it. If that makes sense, right?
It is.
Yeah,
You're
I mean,
only
I
about
think
vibes.
I would say that Abraham Lincoln in his temperance address in, was it 79? I can't remember the exact year. Just Google temperance address. He probably said it best when he described that whole analogy of like, though your words be naked truth and and they be made stronger than steel and thrown with Herculean force, they will be no more likely to pierce the shell of a tortoise in like a rye straw or something, right? Like I'm butchering it, but go read it. It's a great quote, and it's true. And I would say the second thing is the change in social media and how social media over the last 10 years has moved closer and closer and closer to negative engagement. The way that people are capable of the way that you get popularity in your positions is to be vague enough to draw your supporters and enough to bring in your haters, especially your haters, and have them argue in the comments.
The TLDR of that,
and they know this.
Yeah, the TLDR of that is hate
well
binds stronger. Shared hate binds stronger than shared love. It's just true. Shared hate is going to be a stronger tool to build community than shared love. It's just true. Gang, it has been a great show. It has been a wonderful evening. Who is streaming tonight? Let's look. We can go to Stardust. Let's rate Stardust. She rated me the other day, so we will return the favor.
Good stuff.
Okay, so everyone, say hi to Stardust. Remind her that this is a hate raid, and I will see you guys next week, Monday. Tune in.
Bye.
Bye,
if you have a
guys.
camera, wave.
Looking forward to another round.
Yeah, wave. I'll see you guys in a few days. Enjoy your weekends. Have fun. Wick out. Bye.